The final race before the summer break takes the field to the racing capital of the world. Indianapolis, a sacred cathedral of motorsports before the country's biggest day. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're live from virtual Indianapolis. The KBueno Racing Network welcomes you to coverage of race number 6 in the Season 4 SAAC Cup Series. And with that, happy that you're joining us again on a Thursday night where alongside Francisco Bacchial, I am Kenneth Bueno. Francisco, we've gone through a lot of this early regular season. We're going to have a hefty summer break that is going to be spanning the next 2 weeks before we return to action at Iowa in late July. But what a stage this will be right before we get until that summer break in a couple of weeks with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. July 4th is tomorrow. It's going to be a ton of fun as we try to decide whether we end up with another different winner in what has so far been a very exciting Season 4 campaign.
Happy to be here from atop the Brickyard, Kenneth, and I think it's very fitting that we're in Speedway, Indiana, at the most famous racetrack in the world before July 4th weekend. Just very patriotic stuff going on here. Hope to see many patriotic paint schemes out there tonight. And there you see the schedule on your screen of where we're going to be after this 2-week break that we're going to be entering. Post this race, we'll return on July 24th to the Iowa Speedway in the cornfields before we move to Texas and Kentucky for that all-star event, which should be a lot of fun. Portland is going to be coming up next month in August. That's going to be interesting. We've never covered a race from Portland since it got added to the sim about a month or two ago, so that's going to be real exciting stuff as we move towards that second half of the regular season. But this 2-week break, it's going to be important for guys in this race, Kenneth, not just obviously winning the race and getting the playoff spots that they want to achieve, but you want to go into that 2-week break feeling good, having a solid run. The last thing you want is to have a poor run and then sit on it for 2 weeks before Iowa.
And also, when you have that inactivity for the 2 weeks in this series, got to shake off the rust when the field gets to what may be the repaved Iowa Speedway that was recently implemented and added into the iRacing sim to reflect the 2025 version of that track in Newton, Iowa. So with a 2.5-miler tonight, that rectangle here in Indianapolis, sure to be a big-time statement race. And for those in the field trying to become the 5th different winner of the series so far, they're going to try to carry that momentum all the way through the summer stretch and when that midseason madness tournament begins, starting at that brand new Portland International Raceway. Well, we have to give you an idea of what happened just last Thursday at the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway, our second and final race of our little West Coast swing that we had to kick off the regular season. Green flag came in the air very early. Alexander Schumacher already on the front row with Malachi Drake. But it would take not very long, Francisco, to see our first battle for the lead quickly decided. AJ Hyder stepped up and he made the statement early. And then lots of trouble in the early portion of the race. That was Jason Ratchcott getting sent to the outside wall, catching the Daytona winner, Wyatt Roberts. And then another incident here, this one with Quincy Strawhacker, Shockey Tarpley. And we saw lots of the next-gen update in effect. I guess in the negative way, Francisco. We saw great racing, but a lot of the chaos to follow.
Yeah, plenty of chaos and just some opportune times. This was a crazy restart. The door slamming of the race leaders getting up to speed. The 28 of Brad Sawinski goes for a spin off of turn 2 and does a great job of not collecting anybody else, though he taps the inside wall. And then at some points throughout the night, just due to the amount of chaos, we saw single file restarts, but towards the end, that's exactly what Gabriel Dehari needed. It gave him a gap, and AJ Hyder was just unable to overcome that deficit in the latter portions of the race, and Gabriel Dehari would take his first SAAC Cup Series win in style after being top 5 all night long, showing out the long run speed, and that's why it looks like he is the favorite going into the Shoei Sportsbook.
He is at plus 800, so he's the odds-on driver to beat right now if we're talking about drivers going to victory lane. Big time win for Dehari, of course, many races through his short but successful SAAC Cup Series career in which he's been very close, but he has not been able to find that puzzle piece until last week. So now he has that win in hand. He's going to try to carry that momentum into tonight's race from Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and also, given the fact that we've had many different winners so far this season, continues that level of parity. Ethan Fonseca Moreno so far is the only driver to have at least more than one win when he went back-to-back at both Michigan and at Charlotte Motor Speedway. So there is something to behold about potentially the different level of diversity that we may have with drivers in victory lane. Dahari just becoming the newest addition to that list last week at Las Vegas. But the man short of the race victory, the guy who led a bulk of the race before Dahari took over, that was AJ Hyder, the 48 car. And through his very short SAAC Cup Series career and through his first 3 starts in 2025 through season 4, Francisco, he has been impressive. This was Sonoma earlier on this season where he rolled off inside the top 5 and ended up P2 behind the eventual race winner in Connor Trafari, who ended up dominating that back half of the race and took the lead early, kind of never let go. And then last week at Las Vegas, took the lead away early from Malachi Drake. A very impressive showing, but like you saw in that highlight reel just a bit ago, the nail in the coffin, that one hiccup on the restart where the rear tires lit up, got into the side of Dahari, lost that momentum, and from there, Dahari was able to walk away with the victory. So, Francisco, as we look at it, AJ Hyder may just be the most hungry driver of them all. As you take a look at his first 3 SAAC starts this season, 2 of them back-to-back runner-up finishes.
Yeah, obviously the outlier there is Michigan. Didn't have good luck there at the early portion, but immediately backed it up with some impressive runs at the Sonoma Raceway and Las Vegas Motor Speedway to get himself a good bit of momentum going in the right direction. So now he enters Indianapolis, opportunity to get another top 5 finish, and he's definitely proven that he can do it both turning left and right and just turning left. So as we enter the Brickyard, it could be an opportunity for AJ Hyder to go to victory lane for the first time this season.
You know, he told us last week at Las Vegas that it was kind of bittersweet. It was another great finish to add to his resume, but it just stung as much as it did at Sonoma. 2 races in which he really thought he could go to victory lane, 2 races in which he had a very fast race car. So as he's top 5 in the warm-up session right now, he's going to try and use some of that fire to get to victory lane for the first time this season. You see on the bottom hand of your screen, he did make 2 starts back in season 3, so not necessarily his only 3 starts of his SAAC Cup Series career. Picked up 5th at Talladega back in season 3, and then a 28th place finish at Sonoma. So kind of already rewrote the wrongs from Sonoma last season and kind of picked things up this time around, but we'll see what the 48 car does when he and the field take the green flag tonight from Speedway, Indiana. Well, Francisco, you mentioned it early and I mentioned it at the top of the show, a cathedral of speed. This is one of the most important tracks in American racing history. This track opened all the way back in 1909, 9.2 degrees of banking in the corners, but what else does this track have to offer that will be either a challenge, but will probably be a graceful one as the drivers take the track this evening?
And I can be happy to say, Kenneth, that this is a racetrack that I personally was able to add to tracks I have been to watch a race. Not NASCAR, but I did go to the Indianapolis 500 earlier this year. And wow, what a spectacle it was to be at this racetrack. You're near it as you walk past the neighborhoods, and you just feel the aura radiating off this racetrack. Here's a lap around it with the stock car that is provided to you by Mr. Kenneth Bueno here. And the key is really just getting it down to the bottom. Don't want to necessarily get into those rumble strips or curbs all the way down the racetrack, but the key is to really get it anywhere near or even below the white line. There's a space between those curbs and the white line. That is the perfect sweet spot. If you can do that every single one of the 4 corners here at Indianapolis, that is an ideal line to run. You'll save the tires and you'll be fast. You see right there, you did it right there in turn 3. You were able to get right into that space, and see if you do it here in turn 4, same thing. A little bit off, but that's still a really good line. There's a that you kind of make out. If you're anywhere below that seam, that is generally a good line to run. And these straightaways so long that the draft will eventually play a factor in making passes for turns 1 and 3, because that's really going to be the main passing zone, turns 1 and 3.
You know, I kind of leave it up to you to be that master in the driving sense of things when we go for the onboard laps. Whenever I get the chance to do it, I try to mimic the level of speed, but you know, there are still some cracks in the armor. I'm not the greatest driver, but you know, it is a fun lap around Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but that single file train at the inside of the racetrack may provide its level of challenges. We'll dive into that as we get forward into this evening's race, because in the middle of traffic may just be very difficult to make passes on the racetrack because of the nature of this Indianapolis Motor Speedway being mostly single groove. Very different from last week's race at Las Vegas, in which you kind of had the opportunity, many of them, to go up high, go to the middle, go to the very bottom to make speed. Here at Indy, you kind of have 1.5 lanes, and that's basically it if you want to make speed and you want to be fast around this 2.5-mile rectangle with the shallow banking. Doesn't really help you when you carry that much speed going into the corner. Well, drivers are behind. The iRacing official pace car qualifying comes to a close, so let's bring you tonight's starting grid for race number 6 of the Season 4 SAAC Cup Series and our first rodeo with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where the man who finished runner-up last week and the week before, AJ Hyder, will try and go out for his first victory of the season. He'll line it up first with a 51.311. He'll have the look at the green flag first, alongside the two-time winner this season, Ethan Fonseca Moreno, scrapped out a gritty top 10 finish at Las Vegas just last Thursday. He's going to try to get another victory to add on to his resume. Rivers Jones in the number 26 lines his Toyota inside the top 3, with Cody Riveras had a very strong Las Vegas race not that long ago. He'll try and parlay that into a potential victory from P4 on the grid. James Bomar rolls his 15 car from P5. Steven Maggio, the last defending champion of this series, trying to get his first win of the year. He'll roll off in position number 6, followed by the 52 car, the Austin Doron machine, in 7th. Brad Sawinski faced some troubles at Las Vegas last week and to try and right those wrongs from 8th on the starting grid. And rounding out the top 10, Quincy Strawhacker manning his number 49 Toyota, and Nicholas Badimlik in the 60 car.
11th will go to the number 45 of Andretti Robinson, with the Trevor Haley machine to his outside in the 12th spot. Connor Trafari, race winner from Sonoma, will be in 13th, and Ollie Reeves to his outside in the 14th spot. 15th will go to Nicholas Bauman in the number 81, with Amir Bascom in the 21 alongside him. Jason 17th Daytona winner Wyatt Roberts in 18th. Christopher Robinson will be in the 19th spot, with Duncan Fall rounding out your top 20 in the 61.
Trevor Burns in the 02 rolls off 21st. Travis Van Oostendorp in the 47, making his first start since the opener at Daytona this season. He'll be 22nd. 23rd goes to Dane Cruz, making his return. His last series start was at Michigan International Speedway. Michael Walls in the 34 car, going to be on the outside in 24th place. Jacob Locklear, Randall Payne will round out the top 26 before you find Malachi Drake 27th, Larry Miles in 28th, and rounding out the top 30, Gino Mero and Nicholas Borowski in the number 23 car.
31st will go to Ellis Wells in the 57, with Justin Raw in 76 alongside him. Declan George will be rolling off from 33rd, and our very own Keith Welsh is starting deep in the field in 34th. Dale Beck in the number 33, 35th, with Gabe Cazole in the 18 and 36th. Gabriel Tahari is the first driver not to take a time. The odds-on favorite to win rolls off 37th. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, sleeper pick, will be rolling off from 38th, and rounding out our 39 car near Max Field will be Austin Mitty, as the field now works their way into turn 4, and they're going to be faced with the long front straightaway with grandstands on both sides. They're going to start feeling the butterflies and the aura of this racetrack as they wait for that restart zone.
And it's AJ Hyder, Ethan Fonseca Moreno that will lead the field through the first trip around this 2.5-mile legendary racetrack in Speedway, Indiana. For the 6th time this season, we'll go green flag racing, this time from Indianapolis. And already
there's
trouble.
already a rake in the back.
Van Oostendorp is sideways into the outside wall. I believe he may have saved it off of turn 2.
No caution.
And he's got right front damage. The field will stay away. And for the most part, we will roll on green flag racing as they chase to turn 3.
And the 72 of Gabriel Tahari was in the middle of that, as there's a battle fast. Now the caution flag waves. Looks like a trouble in turn 3. Looks like Austin Doran in the center of all that, what goes around off of turn 3, finally putting us under the caution. What a chaotic opening.
Yeah, we had a lot of that trouble outside turn 2. The solo car spill with Austin Doran there, as there's his look as he came out of turn 4. And Michael Walls also wound up there in that accident with Van Oostendorp, who I believe picked up the most damage. I'm not sure if anyone else did, as they were coming down to the back straightaway, but for the first time tonight, we'll be under the yellow flag. And already we have a lead change. Moreno was to the inside of AJ Hyder as they were going to turns 3 and 4. Looks like caution came out at the right moment. Moreno's nose was up front. And so as we are under the yellow, AJ Hyder won't even get the chance to lead that opening lap. Moreno will get the chance to roll up front and lead this restart when we go green the next time by. So let's get a look at how that all unfolded off of turn 2. And there are 2 separate incidents, Francisco, that occurred. One off of turn 2, one entering turns 3 and 4. And the biggest item of concern is, of course, Travis Van Oostendorp, that Kroger Chevrolet on the outside. Oh, he's just loose and just unravels from underneath him. Michael Wall's getting involved. So that was the first bit of contact. That did not bring out the yellow flag, but what did is this. Brad Sawinski, Austin Doron, slight contact in turn 3, and it is a wonderful near save for Doron, but then it just spills out from underneath him on the inside of the racetrack. Avoids that inside wall, Francisco, but a rather harmless spill, and we could have easily kept going green flag racing, but they will slow the field indeed.
And that's going to help Van Oostendorp and Michael Walls get some damage repair on their race cars from their incidents back in turn 2, and it'll allow them to get a breather and try to get back up on level pegging ground after that early troubles. And here's another look at it, and Travis was pretty far up the racetrack. He was up in that 3rd, nearly 4th lane. It's not really where you want to be on the racetrack, but on the start, you're just trying to go wherever they're not. You just how high on the racetrack he is into some of that dirt. Wall's coming up pretty quick. It starts getting loose, and he overcorrects it back into the wall. Fortunately for Walls, he doesn't get too much damage, and he's able to lock it down and save it. Same thing for Van Oostendorp. And they're able to keep going in the right direction. And then eventually Doron goes for the spin with no damage. There they are fixing their race cars, as it is a long pace lap around here. Long caution laps. So it gives drivers plenty of opportunity to fix their race cars and really have a chance to become competitive again. You can sit here for 10 minutes of damage and probably realistically get it back done in a couple cautions.
Yeah, but you got to also make sure, Francisco, that you don't spend at least too long on pit road, because iRacing over the last several years implemented a feature in which at these larger tracks, they will shorten the yellow flag. So, you know, it still is a really long way around here, but the amount of laps that you spend under yellow would be less than, let's say, if you were yellow flag at Bristol Motor Speedway or at a typical 1.5-mile track like we were with at Las Vegas. So trying to make sure that we spend as much time as we can under green, but with this caution flag that comes out early in the race, of course, gives that opportunity for Van Oostendorp and Doron, Michael Walls, those guys to either get fresh tires, also get that damage repair as we roll behind the iRacing official pace car for the first time tonight. Well, we had a 39-car field. That is the largest that I have ever seen in a little while, Francisco. I think the largest field that we've seen in this series since Charlotte. Obviously, I don't know the full car count at Daytona or Michigan, but during our broadcasting stint, I remember that Charlotte race had a ton of drivers, 35 plus. We had over 43. We had to slim the field down to about 40 cars through qualifying, and they kicked out the other remaining drivers that did not have the fastest times. I think this may just be the second biggest field that we've seen in this summer stretch, apart from the first 2 races of the season.
Yeah, that is very normal for seasons. At their start, you normally get the biggest amount of drivers. Look at that close call with the choose cone there, as I believe that was AJ Hyder that went to the inside. But normally at the beginning of seasons, Kenneth, you get the opportunity to see drivers, the most amount of drivers, if you will. That's when they start running. That's when they have their best opportunities to win races or go for the championship, if you will. But as the season goes on, as drivers start being eliminated from that championship hunt, both mathematically and realistically, you start getting fewer car counts. Then you get into the playoffs. Drivers that didn't make the playoffs probably won't nearly race as much, and then you continue on until you get to the championship. But if this is able to stick around, these 30-plus car fields, I think it'll provide some great racing. Next-gen updates clearly have been able to provide some fantastic racing since their updates, and I personally like it, both driving and from the top seat here in the booth, and I hope that Indianapolis can provide some of this, since the last time that we were at this racetrack, I believe it was maybe just before the update in Dropping the Hammer. I could be wrong on that. It was right around that same time. But surely this is going to be some great stuff to watch with this new car.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from the onboard lap apart from my lap itself, was the dashboard. It's very different. So I filmed that before the update came out, and I believe that Indianapolis race did take place before the updates rolled onto the iRacing service. So, you know, there kind of is that difference in time, difference in handling, but as we see this first race from Indianapolis, not only after this next-gen update, but after the most recent art update given to this track as part of the big NASCAR 25 refresh that iRacing is rolling out across all of the NASCAR ovals and road courses in the sim. You know, we missed out on Sonoma being refreshed for the recent build to come in just in time for the SAAC Cup Series race a couple of weeks ago, but here at Indianapolis and even in the following race at Iowa after the 2-week break, we're going to have good-looking venues as part of that refresh. So with our opening lap spill comes our first restart of the race. Moreno and Rivers Jones lead the field. Hefty back to turn 1. Moreno blocks up high. We're about 3 wide in the mid-pack. Nicholas Baumann trying to search underneath and find a lane in turn 1.
We saw that in the start of the race, and we're going to see it on every restart. Drivers will look to try and take it 3 wide before turn 1. You want to get down to the inside. You want the track position, and it's going to happen all night. If we're seeing that on lap 1, surely we're going to see that on every ensuing restart, as Trafari went with an aggressive move to the outside of Trevor Haley to get to the back of Sawinski there to move up into the 8th spot. And you see a little bit further back, there's the 49 of Quincy Strawhacker side by side with the 60 of Nicholas Budilnik, and they're nearly going 3 wide into
that Papyrus Chevrolet up top, bit of damage to Sawinski, who spun twice at Las Vegas, once off the back straightaway, and then once off of turn 4, where he skipped to the grass, and it was a wonderful job of staying mostly out of trouble. Sawinski trying to recuperate, get a better race tonight from the 2.5 miler in Indianapolis, but he'll stay behind the 19 of Trevor Haley. So far, behind this car in the Papyrus machine with Budimlik, Quincy Strawhacker, and the 31 car of Ollie Reeves. That is so far our best battle on the racetrack. Everyone else single file as they chase off turn 2. A lot of guys catching that outside wall. Again, dirty air is such a big factor at a venue that doesn't offer that many lanes of support and speed. Here comes Ollie Reeves looking to the inside. This battle still building up in turn 3 for P9.
I'll say the biggest thing about Indianapolis that is a subtle but important enough note is that if you notice, these straightaways do not have safer barrier in them, and the car, if you hit it if you hit the car with the wall in a more level form, it doesn't cause nearly as much damage, and it doesn't affect the car too negatively compared to if you hit the safer barrier. With the safer barrier, it kind of pushes in more, and it might cause a little bit more wheel damage than you might think. So if you're on the straightaway and you kind of hit the wall level, it might not be nearly as bad as you think.
There's the onboard look from Ellis Wells, and that's a good point. You know, how much of a beating can you take with this next-gen car as well before things unravel, as well as gets to the inside of Randall Payne, the 17 car. That's going to be for 26th place, and he's not exactly in the heart of the battles that we're watching through the mid-pack, which seem to be the most compelling, of course, with the likes of Nicholas Budimlik, of course, with the guys Quincy Strawhacker, Connor Trafari, all of them still kind of deciding things, but Wells just trying to take it easy through this first 7 here at Indianapolis. Kind of what you got to do when a field is this big. You don't really want to make a mistake too early, or else all that track position will be lost, and maybe it's going to be nearly impossible if we continue to get yellows or even sometimes in green flag runs to sustain track position and or make it all up. Look at this mess behind 13th place Amir Bascom. It is a heap of cars right behind as another yellow flag comes out. This time it's Randall Payne at the back, and he's stuffed out in turn 1. Plenty of damage to the right side.
Oh no, I had that exact same Celsius earlier today.
Oh, is that bad luck now for Randall Payne? I don't know, but yellow comes out.
I hope not. I hope not. Don't hate me, Randall.
Well, hopefully that's not a jinx, but there's Randall Payne's Ford Mustang as he tries to pick it up. There's the damage on the rear end of the car. I'd say the damage is more so on the right front than the full right side, but he was faced backwards entering turn 1, so perhaps a bit of help as he was entering the turn. This is with Keelan Belsha fight for position in the back at around P29.
Oh no.
And there
I don't
was
think
contact.
Keelan liked that flavor.
Yep. I think he wanted to move it out of the way, but unfortunately the rear end contact sends Payne around for the spill. And then, of course, nothing he could do to avoid that outside wall. We'll see if we can get a better look at it this time from the back bumper of that Celsius Ford Mustang. And we usually see turn 1 as a huge passing opportunity. Of course, the long straightaway gives way for a lot of drafting help. And Belsha was there entering the corner. I'm not sure if Payne either came a bit too far down or if Belsha just slightly moved up at least an inch or two, but nonetheless, that was enough of a difference for Payne to go around as a result of that contact. And so he will bring out our second caution of the race. Only 9 laps in the books with lots of good fighting around the mid-pack. That finally settles out for the most part. And I guess similar, Francisco, to what we saw at Las Vegas last Thursday. Plenty of trouble. Gonna have that when you have a big field of cars, but obviously drivers fighting for that real estate on the bottom seemed to not work there for Belsha and for Payne.
And what we saw there on that run, as short as it was, is that we saw a big separation really from Cody Riveros in the top 6 back to Trevor Haley, and then another decent sized gap back to Quincy Strawhacker. Those 3 were separated for about 3 seconds. So the dirty air plus just the amount of aggressive racing we were seeing towards the back end of the top 10 and further on back allowed the top 6 to pull away, and then the rest of the field kind of was stringing out as they got back into those fights.
So there are a couple drivers hitting pit road, most notably the 90 machine of Malachi Drake. Austin Doron is in, and we will get that 1 to green signal in just a couple of moments. Let's see if we can dial up our good friend and member of the KBueno Racing Network. That is Keelan Belsha, driving for that Charlie Bauer Photography Toyota Camry. Keelan, you got a copy with us?
I got y'all. How y'all boys doing?
Oh, we're doing good. I know there was a bit of an incident there between yourself and Randall Payne. Take us through that as you guys were going to turn 1, and what happened there.
I'm not really sure right offhand. I didn't think I touched him at all. I got a 2X for the contacts. I don't know if he came down or I came up. That'll be one I look back at a little bit later. But I don't know. Me and Austin Doran, we were, picking off guys one by one, and that was just the next one. We were trying to get around. Me and him were kind of drafting with each other, and I don't know. I thought I held the bottom pretty good. I felt like he came down a little bit, but that'll be something I look at. It may have been on me, 100%. But I have no clue, Kenneth, so we're going to look back at it. But didn't qualify the way I wanted to. The open qualifying kind of caught me by surprise because I ran a lot of practice laps just by myself trying to get a good lap that way. And then open qualifying, didn't do too well. And this thing has been a lot looser than expected. I don't know if y'all have talked to anybody yet, but this is nothing like practice. This track is really slick, and you kind of got to pedal that throttle to get it around here. It's very different than it was in the practice session, so it's really fun. I'm having a lot of fun in the mid-pack here, but hopefully I can get up there and shake it up for a little bit better positioning here in a bit.
Well, we have some input from Steven Maggio, who's running 4th right now, and he told us in the YouTube chat that quote-unquote, they ruined the setup, but he said that it used to be loose. Now it's much tighter. Do you feel that same phenomenon, or you're just feeling a loose race car in traffic?
It kind of was plowing tight in practice, but, I was in a line there, but on these restarts when everybody's side by side, crossing each other's wake all through the pack, this thing is pretty free. I can't just get on the throttle like I could in practice. I got to pedal it through the corner back here, and maybe that's just being further back, but I was in the chat with Ethan, and he was up there running towards the front, and he was talking about how he didn't expect it to be this loose. So I think it's just not the car that we felt like we practiced with. So everybody's kind of learning, and I feel like that may lead to a handful of cautions as this race progresses.
Well, we've got a big field, so we've seen a couple already. And Keelan, hopefully things go well on the restart. Well, thank you for joining us. It's been a little while. We saw you last at Charlotte, so it's good to see you on track again. And best of luck as you guys take the restart.
I appreciate y'all.
So that is our good friend Keelan Belsha involved in that incident entering turn 1 with the 17 car of Randall Payne. And just a reminder to the drivers wondering, or people wondering where Payne is right now. He's going to be a lap down in 38th place. We only have 1 DNF, and that is actually the defending race winner from last week. Gabriel Dahari decides he's going to put his car beneath the wall and into the garage. So he will be our first driver out of the race.
The favorite.
Yeah, the favorite to win this race. All of a sudden, he is going to be gone. And so we're going to see how that all works out with the rest of this field and the context of this race. Also, some updates. Connor Trafari, who was once running in the top 5, he had hit pit road through this last caution period, so he's 37th. Michael Wall is going to be 36th. Van Oostendorp, who was involved in that opening lap spill off turn 2, he's 35th. And then Malachi Drake, Austin Doran, among those drivers to hit pit road that last time by. They are 31st and 32nd as the field comes back around for what will be our second green flag restart of the night with our 80 laps on tap, the total of 200 miles here from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Moreno and AJ Hyder hold position up at the front. Rivers Jones and Steven Maggio will try to play some help as they enter the first corner from the inside and outside of row 2. Pace cars down, they head through the restart zone, highlighted in orange across the inside and outside wall. Here at Indy, green flag waves back in the air. Moreno hops on the gas pedal just a bit late, but he beats Hyder to the line as they chase for turn 1.
And the biggest thing is that Hyder should be clear of Rivers Jones and move up into second, as there's 3 wide further back. Bauman once again being aggressive on the restart, nearly making contact with the 60 as they remain 3 wide through the short chute and into turn 2. Bauman with the aggressive restarts trying to move up through the field.
Bauman not afraid to take a stand right now on the inside of turn 1. He's got good restart pace, and he's been able to use it a bit to his advantage. There he is on the right side of your screen in the middle of this pack, trying to settle himself out with the likes of Nicholas Badimlik, Jason, and Marshall. That 3 car, Brad Sawinski, the Papyrus car, way on the outside of turn 3 as Moreno continues to lead by only 1 car length. Hyder back in second. Maggio was able to steal away third. And despite Rivers Jones starting on the inside of row number 2, as there's cars sideways, Nicholas Badimlik, what a save at the exit of turn 4. We're 4 wide.
4 wide as they're going around the troubled car, and they're all able to keep it all pointed in the right direction. Cars might have nearly gotten close to that pit wall, and in the mess of that is Keelan Belch as he's navigating this traffic.
And what a save by Badimlik. It's going to be a lot of lost track position for the 60 car, but I believe he may have been tapped sideways. Let's get a look at the replay, and now Bauman is spinning off of turn 2. He'll head to the inside wall. Now through the grass, he'll bring another car with him. And I believe we're going to stay green. That's Cody Rivera's at the inside grass.
And you see he's just still wiggling it as there's no cars showing up on the racetrack right now. So that's going to be the reason why there's no caution. Here's a replay first of what happened with the 60 as they were going through turn 4. Looked like he just slightly comes down on the 18 of Gabe Cazzola, gets sideways, gets into the outside wall. And that's what forced everybody to go by. And then moments later, the 81 of Nicholas Bauman has trouble and ends up going around. I'm not sure how the second car got involved, but here's Bauman. Looks like right there's the 02. And just stacks air. That's what it looks like. Doesn't look like there's contact. The 07 gets into the back of the 81, and that's what sends him even further around. Looks like the 36 of Rivera's had his own separate incident, Kenneth.
Yeah, I think either he had some help or he just got out of whack. I'm not sure, trying to evade the Bauman machine that was spinning in the inside off of turn 2 down the back straightaway. And so with that, no caution flies, and the aggression for Nicholas Bauman does not pay off. The Connellsville, Pennsylvania native in for a spill, and another
and there's
crash.
The 33.
Dale Beck spun off of turn 4. He'll be to the inside with Randall Payne, and this time, finally, the yellow flag comes out. 3 separate incidents, and this is the one that breaks the camel's back.
That was a number 4 in this run alone. Oh my gosh.
Wow,
first the 60, then we had the incident of Cody Rivera separately from Nicholas Bauman, and now Dale Beck and the 17 of Randall Payne into some trouble. Wow, Kenneth, all of this is going on lap 15 of 8.
That was a hectic restart, several incidents. Of course, we covered what happened with Badimlik there, then with Bauman. And this is what transpired with the 33 car of Dale Beck. This is the Zinn Chevrolet that's based on the paint scheme that Kyle Larson ran at Charlotte in the Memorial Day race a couple years back. So Trafari to the inside. They're going to get underneath Wyatt Roberts, and it is Badimlik who makes the contact. But Beck really comes down, I believe, trying to clear. And then Randall Payne just getting off of it, locks up the brace. Great job of staying off the inside wall. That's about an inch or so away from the wall. But there was a separate incident there, of course, involving that 36 car of Cody Rivera's. And in fact, Francisco had a pretty big hit to the inside wall.
Yeah, he made a move to the inside of the 26 of Rivers Jones. His car slid up. Jones gets into the outside wall. They make contact. And then right here, Jones comes down and gets into Rivera, sends him hard into the inside.
And that's going to be a lot of damage. Potential toe link broken on
broke the
Rivera's
suspension,
car.
yeah.
Has to be. And for Rivera's, he's on pit road now, 2 laps down in 38th place. Toe links really don't mess around when they're damaged here on this next-gen car. And Rivera's now trapped on pit road. A driver from Sonoma County, California, was hometown racing a couple of weeks ago at the road course race earlier on this season at Sonoma. But unfortunately for Rivera's, his consistent run at Las Vegas will not momentum into another good start and a good race here tonight from Indianapolis. So we will be under the yellow flag again. And with Rivers Jones kind of being involved in that, it's just a bit of an odd situation there, Francisco, because I'm not sure whether he stepped out, whether he was looking to side draft or whatever happened there. But in all of that, Rivers Jones, who was at once in the top 5, rolled off in the top 3 from our last green flag restart, plummets to 15th as James Bomar and a couple of other drivers, including Jones, will hit pit road.
And the pits are closed, so these guys are coming back into the lane this time. Could be possible for a strategy call, as we're in the window of making it on 2 stops, I believe. But you can see, and I think rightfully so, most of the front runners are deciding to stay out. The track position clearly playing a vital role in this idea. You got to remember, 75% fuel with this series, and the fact that that probably leads to somewhere around 30 laps of fuel if you were to go green flag the whole way with the caution we've had. These guys that stayed out could probably extend it to lap 40, but they're still going to have to stop at least another time. Most of the field could probably shorten that second pit stop, and they're just trying to get off strategy. So I don't think it's that big of a loss, but certainly something worth keeping an eye on, just making sure that we're on top of all these strategies so long as we keep these yellows up. But how about new third place runner Steven Maggio? We haven't talked about him since the starting lineup, and here he is sitting in third. He won the the drop in the hammer race here in a couple of weeks ago with the old car, but he clearly knows his way around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
And this season has been picking off where he left off from that championship finale win at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Has not finished a race outside of the top 10. The closest he's been from being bounced out of the top 10 was in last week's affair at Las Vegas, or rather at Sonoma, one of the last times we saw him in the race. In 9th place, that's where he ended up, but Maggio has had a rather good season so far. I believe the Sim Racer Hub stats do not include Las Vegas, so we'll kind of keep an eye on that stat of whether he has finished every race inside the top 10, but through the first 4 races, he had all top 10 finishes. Best race of 2nd place back in Michigan, the race where he fell short to his teammate and good friend Ethan Fonseca Moreno, or at least technical alliance teammates, not in fact teammates in this series, as Maggio runs for the GOAT team. Moreno runs under that KBueno Racing banner. But you're right, Francisco, really good start for Maggio, and based off of that drop in the Hammer Cup Series victory, that was before the update, but you know, it is one of Maggio's favorite places to run, probably because of the setup first of all, but most importantly just to the way you have to run this track. And Maggio will probably have the best start of them all inside row 2 for the restart.
Yeah, he probably could get a good launch there from being behind the race leader. But Maggio here, even outside of that drop in the generally gone well here. He was in position to win in the Slide Job Series a couple of months ago, but lost out on fuel mileage strategy. He was also very competitive in the 4-wide race, despite getting significant damage on the opening lap. That race, of course, not broadcasted. He got damage on lap 1, had about nearly 8 or 9 minutes, and he managed to recover that into a top 5 finish. So Steven Maggio tends to go well around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and at least right now it is clearly proven to stay status quo.
That's true, and I just want to come back to that stat that I said could have been wrong. In fact, I was right. He still hasn't finished a race outside of the top 10. He ended up with 10th at Las Vegas.
In that 5-wide move.
Yeah, the 5-wide move, the chaos on the white flag lap. If you don't remember that, you can tune in to the Las Vegas race. It happened about a week ago. There was absolute chaos off turn 4. Maggio was among those kind of in that realm of possibility to either gain or lose a ton of track position. Maggio ended up being the benefactor of that, gained a ton of those spots, and after a frustrating interaction with Shockey Tarpley late in the going of that race, he was still able to recover, and now he's going to be on the inside of row 2. Quick shout out as well, Quincy Strawhacker, that 5-hour energy, red, white, and blue Toyota Camry. Great run for the 49 tonight. He's going to be on the outside of the 2nd row, so could be under fire from Andretti Robinson, who's 5th inside row 3 on the restart. But Strawhacker, after some of the struggles being involved in the aero packing situations and much more at Las Vegas 1 full week ago, Strawhacker's really picking things up through the first 18 this evening. Back into the restart zone, Moreno and Hyder back to the green flag.
There's the launch for Moreno to get clear. Maggio gets a good launch to maybe try to go side by side. If Hyder covers that spot, he should keep it. There he goes down to the bottom. Strawhacker now left to take fourth away. Looks like Andretti Robinson tries to close out Reeves for that fifth spot, but Reeves trying to hang it around the outside, but eventually Wolf falls to six. You see the first bit of side-by-side back with Jason Marshall, Traver Burns. They all sort that out. Now here comes Gino Maro on the outside in the 46 with Gabe Cazzola trying to crap the top 10 for the first time.
And there's trouble off turn 2. That's Trevor Haley, the KBueno Racing Chevrolet. Went to the inside off of turn 2, perhaps hit the inside wall, but it's a solo car incident, so we will stay green. Here comes Hyder. Look at the inside off of turn 4. Had a great run entering turn 3, and now Maggio wants a piece. 3 wide for the lead down the front straightaway.
And who's going to be the first one to lift for turn 1?
It is not a wide entry into the first corner. Deep send for Moreno, and it pays off tenfold. Moreno holds on to his defense in turn 2.
That took a lot of trust in his race car to go on the outside of 3 wide. Maggio sideways off of turn 2. What a save. But Moreno trusting his race car very instinctively around the outside of 3 wide in turn 1. It keeps him in the race lead, and Maggio's the one that another spot to Quincy Strawhacker, as here comes the 45 of Andretti Robinson, but he drifted up.
What a standoff. They're entering turn 1. Moreno holds on to the lead. Hyder back in second. Maggio gives up third with that loose moment off turn 2. Strawhacker ends up taking that podium spot. And Ollie Reeves steps into the top 5 for the first time all night long. And just like Maggio saying in the middle of the pack that it's a very tight race car, well, very different scenario there in the middle of turn 2, trying to go for that pass underneath Hyder for second place. And Moreno just holds them all off. An unbelievable stance at the front as they're single file through the top 15 or so. And I believe our first battle may indeed be building for that 15 spot. Ellis Wells trying to hold off the 52 car of Austin Duran. Remember, Duran had hit pit road earlier, and now Keelan Belcha's in trouble. He's in the inside wall off turn 2.
And there he is going through the grass. Oh, and he's got big left front damage, big wheel suspension damage. That's going to be his race over. As there's contact further up ahead with Dale Beck sideways as the 33 new wheel corrects it on the outside.
And now there's more trouble. Beck ends up in the wall. Yellow flag is out, and the chaos continues. And after Beck went for a single car spill off turn 4, now his car is toast. This time, yellow flag, lap 21.
He was racing, I believe it was the 61 of Duncan Fall, and they made contact in turn 3, and that sent the 33 sideways for a lazy spin, and then all of a sudden it caught and overcorrected into the outside wall. And Bauman got a piece of it in the process. Here's firstly what happened with the 16 of Belcha. Doesn't exactly have anybody on him, but we heard him talk about the setup. Looks like right there, it looks like it got loose well on the exit of the corner, nearly on the straightaway, and it just wasn't able to hang on. Gets into the outside wall, or in the inside wall rather. And then here's the trouble for Dale Beck. There's the contact with the 61 of Duncan Fall. That sends the 33 around. There he goes, hard overcorrected it, and Bauman with a hard contact as well. And Pine gets a piece of it as well. That's his third incident today.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of trouble tonight. And his car ends up mostly okay, I believe. But for Dale Beck, yeah, his car is torn up. There he is with Keelan Belcha on pit road. And again, suspension damage does not play around with this next-gen car. And Beck, who spun around harmlessly in turn 4 earlier in this race, this one a much more dire circumstance. And the contact with Nicholas Bauman may indeed force him onto pit road. Not sure if there is tolling damage either on this Napa Auto Parts.
Here come the leaders.
Number 81 car.
And Maggio stays out.
Maggio will hold out in front, so he does not believe he'll come down pit road with the rest of the field. Moreno will lead them on through. And Francisco, you mentioned you could go almost 30 laps on 75% fuel. With the amount of yellows, you probably could have stretched it a little more than that, but looks like a majority of the driver base not confident that they can make it until the end of the long green flag stints if we ended up with another restart. So they will take this gamble now. Moreno ends up in. AJ Hyder overshoots the pit box. And then Quincy Strawhacker and a lot of other drivers right behind. Here's the race off pit road.
I don't think most of the field was confident that the cautions were going to continue to make the one-stop strategy possible. With the amount of cautions, you could have gotten close to 40 as there's 3 wide for the 3rd spot, and it's Quincy Strawhacker getting out in front of Ollie Reeves for the 3rd off pit road, and more 3 wide there. Looks like Gino Maro was in the inside of all that, so some great racing here off of pit road. Moreno keeps the first of these cars on this strategy, but will be 12th on the racetrack when we go back to the green flag, as 11 cars appear to stay out here. Most of them have already pitted in this race, but very crucially, the only car yet to pit in the entirety of this race is Steven Maggio. And like I was saying, this most likely could be a play on the strategy of trying to see if enough cautions come out, you only pit once, so you don't put yourself into the back, lose the track position. You're trying to minimize the amount of times you do.
Yeah, and with Moreno coming down pit road with everyone else, remember those batch of guys that came down earlier in this race, and because of that, Moreno is going to restart in 12th because Austin Mitty, Brad Sawinski, Duncan Fall, Connor Trafaria goes all the way up to the 2nd place car of Austin Duran. They pitted on various laps. Duran and the 24 car of Declan George, they pitted around 13 laps ago. The rest of the pack pitted at least 6 or less laps ago. And then, of course, there's Moreno and the rest of the field who just pitted now. So we're going to end up in a fun situation. 3 separate strategies. Now 4, actually, if you count Steven Maggio all by himself at the front of this field, yet to pit. And so this is going to be a lot of interesting plays when we get that green flag restart. And whether Maggio feels that the green flag run won't be as long enough and he can come down pit road comfortably, or whether he will be forced to if we end up going down a green flag route. Francisco, you had something you wanted to say under this yellow flag.
Yes, so I know you're aware because you're in the same group chat that I was in when the news broke, but for those that do watch the global sport of football, the unfortunate news this morning broke out that Portuguese and Liverpool player Diogo Jota unfortunately passed this morning with his brother alongside of him in a car accident in Spain. Jota had gotten married just 10 days ago, so very unfortunate news.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking. I saw that news immediately when I woke up this morning, and it was very sad. You know, I'm not a huge Liverpool fan. Wasn't too tapped in with the names in the sport, but whenever someone is lost in that nature, it is very much heartbreaking. And of course, our thoughts are with Jota and his family, as both of them were lost in that car accident. So our thoughts and prayers with them as we move forward in tonight's race. And Steven Maggio will have the control car spot on the inside of row 1. Austin Duran, or he pitted 13, now 14 laps ago. He'll be on the outside of the row, playing a bit of that offense into the corner. James Bomar, Declan George, Wyatt Roberts, your current running top 10. And for Wyatt Roberts, it's been shaky couple of weeks after winning at Daytona, that bright yellow number 42 car, which I believe is a proper throwback to back in the day when Dale Earnhardt Jr., Dale Earnhardt, when they used to run the Corvettes back at the Daytona Road Course in sports car racing. I think that is the proper throwback, that bright yellow car that you see on the inside of row 3. So a really nice nod to that era early on the 2000s, as we'll get the green flag here. Maggio and Duran will lead the field off of turn 4 and into turn 1 once again. Lap 25 will tick here from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Maggio goes a bit late. We're back under green.
And a quick tidbit, I can say that I've had the fortune of actually seeing that 3 car in a museum. When I was at the Corvette Museum, they had that car on display with Dale Earnhardt and Dale Earnhardt Jr. commemoration stuff. As there you see the action on this restart, 2 and 3 wide.
And the gaining car here, James Bomar, went to the inside of Austin Duran.
Sideways!
And Duran's now sideways off turn 2. He'll spill down the back straightaway. And an absolute wonderful save, as now there's more trouble in front. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, Larry Miles, and others in it. Quick yellow, 1 lap after the restart.
And that's why you don't want to lose the track position. The first car that went sideways was AJ Hyder. Trafari took it 3 wide through the center. Hyder, I believe, got tapped up by the inside by Sawinski. That's what sent him up the racetrack. Duran got arrow loose and nearly spun in front of the field. That stacked the entirety of the field up. Cars were going all over the place. And, man, Jurgensmeyer's incident is very precautious, as there's Hyder sideways with the fantastic save on his own. But then Jurgensmeyer was blinking in and out, and all of a sudden the car just popped sideways. There's no one within his vicinity when his race car appears, Kenneth. So I'm not sure what caused him to go sideways. It is, I think, purely connection issues. There was nobody around that 00 when it broke sideways.
Yeah, it's difficult to tell whether he went sideways on his lonesome or whether he kind of had some help as he was kind of in and out of the session with his connection. Here's a look on board with AJ Hyder running behind Moreno. You'll see him step out in the short chute entering turn 2.
The contact comes from the inside with Sawinski, and a good save does not make contact with the outside wall, but this was probably a blessing in disguise because right around that same area is where all the chaos ended up happening off of. And how about through all that, Ethan Fonseca Moreno up to the 5th spot. Done a good job moving up through that restart. That's the complete opposite situation as AJ Hyder. So now Moreno up to 5th. Maggio keeps the race lead. But again, I think this is why we saw so many drivers stay out, Kenneth, is that restart right there is a perfect example. If you keep the track position, you're not going to be in the midst of that. You're not going to risk your race car with that kind of damage. I mean, look behind Moreno. Look, there's Connor Trafari, and look at the front end damage he has on his race car. He has to pit because of it.
He's going to come down pit road, and following him is going to be Declan George. His Milwaukee Ford Mustang is in. Jacob Locklear comes in. Amir Bascombe looks like he's going to enter. Nope, he's not going to. Ollie Reeves will, though, in the back. And perhaps Dane Cruz in his Acura, sponsored by Nikon, will also stay out in an attempt to fake some of the drivers in. But you're right. Possible good call here for Steven Maggio. And I think his wishes or his predictions came true, probably anticipating that there would be another quick yellow to be able to save a bit more of that gas that he will have to try and hold on to now that he's at the front of this field without having taken a pit stop at all through this race. Maybe praying that he can make it to the halfway mark of the event on just one pit stop and then being able to roll to the checkered flag. But just depending on the situation, Francisco, I'm not sure whether things will open up attrition-wise for us to go green flag racing. We did see a bit of that, particularly in the midway portion of that Las Vegas race. We went the first 25-ish laps green, and then the yellow came out, and then cautions did breed cautions, so we were kind of in that stop-and-go cycle for a while. But do you anticipate that we'd see that thing open up and maybe the strategies start getting a bit more interesting here with the attrition, or depending on the traffic we're seeing in the back still trying to carve their way through, it's going to be more chaos before we eventually filter out?
I think it's the latter on this one, Kenneth. There's still a couple cars out there that haven't made pit stops, and we've seen plenty of cars just have issues with the traffic, with the chaotically loose handling that these cars currently possess. Behind the wheels, Keelan was talking about. There's Trafari now heading back out on the racetrack. I think if you're not in the top 3 or 5, then you're probably going to be fighting for your life, just hanging on to the race car and the handling capabilities of it. So probably going to see some more chaos here.
There's Trafari, the winner from Sonoma earlier on this season, and a driver who ended up at Las Vegas with an average finish of about 13th. Wasn't necessarily a standout effort for Trafari at the end of that race, but still was able to walk away with a top 15. And he's got that front end nose damage repaired, which is very important. That nose damage for a lot of drivers seems to be a death sentence because it kills your aerodynamic ability, especially here at this large track of Indianapolis, where you really need this car to be as clean as possible without any dents across it. And then, of course, potential engine damage as the air is coming in from that radiator at the bottom of the race car. That is, in part, what hampered the race for Alex Schumacher last week at Vegas. You know, he started very well in that race on the outside of row 1, his best start of the year, and then ran up in the top 10 for a bulk of it until he picked up that damage. We're not exactly sure when that happened, but when he did, his race turned sour, and it turned sour in a very big hurry.
Look at this, Kenneth, single file.
Yeah, we are going to go single file, and we did get confirmation after last week's race at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway that the single file rule for restarts is that if you have 3 consecutive cautions within 3 laps of going green, then they will try to go green flag racing single file for either 15 consecutive green flag miles or until 20 miles to go in the race. And that does include cautions after any amount of laps, followed by 2 yellows where they don't go more than 3 laps green. And because we've seen a lot of the chaos happen within that 1 to 3 lap range after the green flag restart, yep, going to be very, very easy decision, Francisco, for race control to take this single file and try to clean some things up.
And I'm not opposed to that, Kenneth. I don't think we see leagues do this, and there's some racetracks and when we go to that we might go to later this season, we'll prove that this will be effective. I mean, sometimes there's just moments where drivers are struggling to get going, and sometimes if you spread them out more naturally, it might just blend yourself to getting more laps underway. It might be a little bit more work for race control, but I think all in all, it's something unique, something different. It gives us something different to watch, a different thing to focus on. If maybe you're better with these single file restarts, it definitely helps you lose less positions, but it also means you have to be more aggressive to gain response since you're not double wide. But I will say it plays a different factor in leagues that we probably haven't covered since 2020, as they're now in the restart zone, and it's gonna be Steven Maggio getting up to speed, as looks like a couple cars further back are already jumping to the inside trying to avoid any stack-ups.
And that was the Exalta Chevrolet. Michael Walls at the very back. Quincy Strawhacker now to the inside. That's going to be a fight for what is P9 on the racetrack entering turn 1. Maggio holds out in front, serving with Bomar, Roberts, Moreno, and Duncan Fall, the current top 5. There's the battle for 8th right now. Strawhacker to the inside of that Papyrus Chevrolet, who also got his damage fix on the front end. And there's a spinner behind. Michael Walls going sideways off of turn 2. It's been the trouble spot all night long, and once again, we are not going to throw the yellow for the 1 car.
And Duncan Fall now going side by side with the 60 of Nicholas Budilnik, who moves up into 5th. So the 60 car with a strong move in turn 4 to get up into the 5th place position. Ethan Fonseca Moreno peeking down to the inside of the 42 of Wyatt Roberts, trying to see if he can take that spot away.
Remember, he's on fresh tires to the tune of about 6 laps from Bomar in front and Roberts now in the rearview mirror. And then, of course, the 23-lap fresher tires on the race leader, Steven Maggio, who has yet to find a negative part of the race, at least so far on the old set of Goodyear Eagles. He's been able to hold out so far. But again, if we continue to go green flag racing, now we're past lap 30, Maggio may indeed be forced to hit pit road, whether he likes it or not. Good battle now inside the top 10. Gino Merrill, that Smart Food Toyota Camry to the inside. Andretti Robinson behind, going toe-to-toe with the runner-up
Mitty in the outside
Charlotte.
wall.
And Mitty gets the wall. He'll stack up everybody. 3 wide in the middle of turn 4.
And nearly makes contact with Gabe Cazzola. He just went in way deep into turn 3. Drifted with the race. There's trouble for back. Around goes, I believe, Nicholas Borowski and Traver Burns. And the caution flag waves as there's a stack up on the front straightaway.
And more drivers in it. Randall Payne and Jacob Locklear, as Traver Burns is deadlocked in the middle of the racetrack off of turn 4. And just with the way he's accelerating the car, I think that's heavy suspension damage for Burns. And then for Locklear involved, Nicholas Borowski was in it late. He immediately toes to pit road. And there's Locklear's Columbia Toyota Camry doing the Kyle Busch, going backwards off of the caution.
Oh, man. Yeah, anytime and he nearly hits Traver Burns there as he gets back going the right direction. I've seen Kyle Busch do that in the 2023 Coke 600. He ended up coming back to 6th place after that instance. So Jacob Locklear giving him a little bit of an homage there after nearly going over at a slow rate of speed, I must say. As here's the replay now. There was trouble up ahead, as we documented with the Austin Mitty incident in turn 4, and then right there, it looks like Burns just gets loose on his own, makes some contact further up ahead, so some cars might have some damage further out in front, but there you see the hits as they pile in, and there's the 84 nearly going up and over against the outside wall.
And nowhere for them to go. Of course, Burns getting loose there off turn 4, and then just trying to hold on to the race car. And in the midst of that was, as well, the Nikon Toyota Camry. Here is Dane Cruz, who was right behind Burns at the time of the yellow. And again, there's no contact. I'm not sure whether it's that aero packing situation. Burns is already slightly loose there in turn 3, and he dives to the inside of Ellis Wells. Car's already slightly stepping out, and right about there, weaves his car a bit to the left. Cruz gets a touch. He's trying to save it, and it takes him all the way to the outside and inside wall. Catches Larry Miles as well. And then as the trouble and the smoke builds up behind, Cruz is able to escape, but a bang hits on both sides of the race car. This race has not been kind to many. Again, one of our largest fields of the night, 39 cars strong, which is our largest since Charlotte, which was over 43. They had to cut down that field. We had a 40-car field at both Daytona and at Michigan. And then Sonoma and at Las Vegas, we had varying fields that were pretty substantial, but much less than what we have here tonight. Here comes Steven Maggio. The race leader finally decides after 32 laps that he will enter pit road with a chance to gain some of the 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles and that splash of fuel. He went longer than everyone else, so perhaps he may be able to be in a good strategy for the checkered flag. That is, of course, if we stay green, and depending on the scenario in this field, if we continue to find more yellows. But Maggio is through and in. He'll enter his pit box. A couple of other drivers hit pit road as well. That's Nicholas Badimlik and that Kroger Ford Mustang in the background. And not many drivers will come in, so in turn, we'll hand the lead to James Bomar for the first time tonight.
And Bomar pitted a little bit before most of the rest of the field, so it's not nearly a huge discrepancy both on tires and fuel. But looks like for Steven Maggio, he probably wasn't confident in another run going on, and that will result in him keeping the lead and making this strategy worthwhile. So he obviously can't make one stop work from here on out. He's definitely got to do it twice. So we'll see just when most of the field decides to make that second stop. Clearly 30 laps to go is probably going to be the cut. Somewhere between 30 and 35 laps to go in this race. We're going to see a good portion of the field pit, and potentially will be for the last time, since the way this race is going and the way you normally would like to play these races, you want to do them backwards like a road course. So as soon as you know you're good enough to go to the end of the race, bring it down pit road, get those tires, get that track positioning, because clearly that's going to matter more so than it ever has before.
Yeah, and it mattered a lot with that kind of duel between Ethan Fonseca Moreno and AJ Hyder. And if you want to know where AJ Hyder is right now, currently he sits all the way back in 15th place, while Moreno has just taken over second and will be on the outside of row number 1. So it just tells you with the trouble that Hyder faced there in turn 2 a little while ago, and with Moreno trying to cut through the field, the big difference in track position and the race leader formerly in Steven Maggio, he will roll off 23rd off of the next restart when we go green. So it has been very chaotic, to say the least, here from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back with more coverage of race number 6 in the Season 4 SAAC Cup Series from Speedway, Indiana.
Let's go racing!
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
There's only one fuel that can drive the performance you demand from your car. New 94 Octane, the highest octane on the market, only at Sunoco.
Let's go. What's up? Yo, what's up, Kenneth? How's it going, man? How are you? Good. How you been? What you got in the bag, man?
I got a panini, I have a hoagie, I got it all through the Wall Rewards app.
You can order it all through the app?
You can order it all through the app.
I can order it all through the app. The world is my oyster! By placing your order on the Wawa app, you can pick up at any time with ultimate satisfaction. Gotta have a Wawa. Back live from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway on our side-by-side camera, you just saw the incident involving the 3-car of Jason Marshall went sideways as the entire field stacked up on the single-file restart right behind the race leader in James Bomar. We'll get a moment to digest what happened on that incident, but welcome back to the coverage on the KBueno Racing Network. Kenneth Bueno and Francisco Bacallao with you in what has been a caution-filled Indianapolis affair for race 6 in the season 4 SAAC Cup Series. Let's get a moment to figure out what happened, Francisco, and I think we saw the writing on the wall from as soon as the race leader in Bomar was trying to get going. There was a huge stack up at the front of the field that catches out Marshall here. Doesn't start. He's giving good space until there's the sandwich.
All it takes is someone to make it look like they're going, especially before the restart zone, and that just blocked the front straightaway. Numerous cars getting a piece of it. Several cars are still trying to get up to speed, not really sure what's going on, and they just show up at the wrong time. Just big trouble all around here.
So here's another look at it, this time for Moreno, who's in second. So it gives you a better idea of how this all starts, because Bomar is up in the front. Remember, he's going to go through the restart zone. He's the one that determines whether the field goes green or not. Moreno seems to preemptively jump the gun, and that's what stacks up Roberts, and then it just goes all the way down. That's usually what we've seen from those restarts, Francisco, where the guys in the back, they're trying to get that edge, get the good jump into turn 1, but then they have to hop on the brakes, and then that just continuously goes to the back and back and back until somebody hits somebody, and then ultimately that's what literally creates that incident with Jason Marshall.
And I will say that Indianapolis specifically has this problem probably a little bit more than any other racetrack because the front straightaway is so long and the restart zone is so late after the pit entry. People assume that restart zone is much earlier than it actually is. Ready, and all of a sudden you go, but you're not actually there yet. I can't tell you the amount of times that has happened. Probably less on iRacing, more so on console games. You're just waiting to see that restart zone at Indianapolis, and it takes forever. I as a league owner on console games, and also just the amount of leagues I used to run, that was the track where you most saw jumping restart penalties assigned. It was Indianapolis for that very reason, and it doesn't surprise me that with single file restarts especially, we're seeing that be an issue because everyone's trying to time the restart to getting those spots, and it's so difficult, and then you just end up with this stacking up situation. I don't tie that to the single file action. I think we'll be seeing the same thing if it's double wide, especially late in the race. I think it's just more so just how aggressive everybody's trying to be today.
And especially given the fact that we've had short green flag runs, I think it's still in the mind of the field to gain as much track position as possible, and a lot of that comes off of the restart. We've seen plenty of guys discuss how this car and this setup that they've tested in practice and of course put into race trim so far over 37 laps as we're halfway. It's very tight, very plowy, a car that likes to go up to the outside wall when you're in the gas pedal, and especially when you're in the heap of this dirty air, which you got a good look here with Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, who's rolling under yellow from 19th. So it probably incentivizes more drivers to be more aggressive off the restarts because they understand if the race goes green enough and for a little too long, the opportunities to pass are going to be much more limited.
All around, it just makes it difficult to everybody because you don't get the green flag runs to make those passes, and then when the cautions come out, it's you could be in it, maybe the guy next to you could be in it. It is so difficult. But all it takes is one run, and normally we get one run in, even if it's at least 10 or 15 laps. We normally get one in. So I think still with over half this race to go, Kenneth, we still have at least one green flag run in it. We saw it last week at some point.
Are we going to see it at the end? I feel like we may just see that. I mean, from Charlotte, from Las Vegas, took us a little while to get under green, but when we did, then we went all the way.
Yeah, they tend to be more so in the second half of the race rather than the first half. The NIS Coke 600 this year that I ran with Maggio, with Moreno, with Porter, it went in that direction. The first 225 laps went mostly caution filled and just alternate strategies. The caution that I was involved in comes out and I get a damage repair, and then went green for about 100 or 125 laps. So that's usually how it works. So you'll get a lot of cautions in, a lot of attrition, and all of a sudden it'll just go green that one time, and that could be enough to go green for the rest of the race, or for most of enough of this race. We've been almost in this race session for an hour, and we're still not even halfway into this race. There's been some long caution laps, longer than I remember.
Yeah, it felt like a little while, and we're going to get this restart here. Again, single file, because they haven't gone long enough, the 15 green flag miles or with 20 miles to go in the race, where they can come back to double file restarts. Race control not confident in it yet, so they will hold up the flag that we will go single file until this race cleans up a little bit. 2 laps before halfway. But that will help James Bomar, who's going to lead some more laps here from Indianapolis. His first laps led since Charlotte, where he led 13. And he'll lead this field at the front with Moreno, Roberts, Fall, and Quincy Strawhacker, the rest of the top 5. Remember, it was a stack up on a single file restart that brought us our latest yellow flag with Jason Marshall. Maybe we'll get a cleaner entry into turn 1 this time by. 2 laps before halfway, Bomar waits, then he fires. Green flag.
This one a lot better. Not nearly as much trouble as you already see drivers flaring to the inside, trying to make moves. Fall and Strawhacker come close there for that position, and there goes Strawhacker drifting up in front of Fall. That could invite Gino Mera to the inside of Sawinski, as Andretti Robinson tries to join the fight for that battle for position. Further back, AJ Hyder has made up some positions to get up into 13th after his trouble on an earlier restart. But you see most of the field very strung out on this restart. About time, as Steven Maggio down into 21st spot. Remember, he made a pit stop a couple of yellows ago, and trying to see if he can at least make up some positions now that he's got actual flag lap to try and make those tires of good use.
And there's a healthy mix of drivers who have had to carve their way through the field tonight versus those who have been mostly up here at the front. Of course, Moreno leading this race early. Gino Mero has had to move his way through. Look at the move from Andretti Robinson. Helped down the front straightaway by Malachi Drake. They'll be door-to-door at the entry of turn 1. That's for 7th place. And Robinson, coming off of a fantastic Las Vegas outing just 1 week ago, gonna try and replicate it with another top 10. The AR exemplary Ford Mustang to the inside, and he's got the spot.
Oh, and Amir Bascom just got into the outside wall pretty hard, and now several cars are just going to his inside, getting around the 21 in order to not get slowed down going into 3. He's got some big right front damage on his race car.
He'll try to repair it though, but lots of huge hits to the outside wall off of turn 2. You're carrying all that speed, and especially in the middle of that pack, the dirty air is so strong. Car's not going to really want to rotate, and you get a good look here off of the final corner as AJ Hyder strikes the inside, potentially on Christopher Robinson. You know, the Robinson in this field, and Ellis Wells right behind to turn 1.
And up front, Moreno almost a second behind Bomar in this run so far. So Bomar, even though he's got slightly older, is able to pull away and able to put on the gap to track position, clearly helping him out. But you look behind Moreno, it's still another 1.5 seconds back to Wyatt Roberts. So the front of the field clearly able to quickly and very much, very far spread. But everywhere else in the field, it is a big gap, as there's the send by Ellis Wells peeking the inside. Robinson has to leave him the space, and look at the 57 trying to hang in there as they both in on Gabe Cazzola.
And Cazzola had to back out there for a moment. Does not want to be on the outside of 3 wide as they were coming off the final corner. Malachi Drake, AJ Hyder, that's the auction for 9th place on the racetrack settled. Now Cazzola to the inside of Malachi Drake. Again, down these long straightaways, you know, we haven't talked about it much because of the yellows, but this is a track much like Pocono, to which you can use that draft down the straightaways to help you out at the entry of turn 1 or in turn 3. And for the matter, it helps Hyder. It kind of kills Cazzola's run. He's loose in the middle of turn 2. Open door now for Christopher Robinson to the inside.
And you see Ollie Reeves also got loose off of turn 2 as well, and that invited Jonathan Jurgensmeyer to go to his inside to try and take that spot away a little bit further back in the same shot. And it looks like Robinson will clear Cazzola in turn 3. Now Ellis Wells will go behind that number 8. Try and take advantage of that. There's Doran peeking to the inside of Ellis Wells in the process. As you see up front, just absolutely gone, it is James Bomar in the number 15, over 1 second clear of 2nd place Moreno.
Now the difference between those two is 6 laps in favor of Moreno, so a bit surprising that Bomar is starting to stretch out this gap at a little over 1 second and 1/10. And you look even further behind this 15 car with our Charlie Bauer photography onboard camera. Wyatt Roberts is another full second and a half away from Moreno in P2, so there is a huge distance covering the top three. It's 3 seconds between the top three drivers, and then through Quincy Strawhacker and Andretti Robinson, that's where things start to get a little closer. Now Strawhacker fights to the inside. He'll take the spot away from the ailing Roberts in the middle of turn 3. And there's that 5-hour Energy Toyota Camry doing a fantastic job tonight. Steps back into the podium.
Yeah, for those that weren't aware, this is what slide job looked like with myself and a couple other of the drivers that are in this very race. It was very spread up at the front, and it ended up eventually closing back up in the second half. Almost the inverse of what we've seen so far tonight, in that we had a lot of attrition early, and then the green flag running. We had a lot of green flag running, then attrition. Right now, it's benefit of James Bomar, who was one of the contenders, and that one, Quincy Strawhacker, having a great run here in this one as he's moved up into the top 3. Zola, too, he gets hit into the back of by Ellis Wells, and now Doran goes to the inside trying to take advantage of those positions.
We'll keep an eye on there. There's Robinson to the inside of Roberts. Quick deciding move for P4. And for Strawhacker, just looking at where he started in this race, good progression so far to P3, and ended up 18th in that Las Vegas race. Last week, we mentioned the several incidents that Strawhacker was involved in. One of those just being aero-packed on the right rear, the left rear of the race car, rather, in the middle of turns 3 and 4. And was involved in some harmless incidents, but picked up some damage. And what a great comeback it's been for Strawhacker so far tonight. Our best battles so far in the middle of the top 15, and that's where Steven Maggio, former race leader, is still trying to cut his teeth. Cazzola on the outside. Trafari now down low in the short chute entering turn 2. Maggio is making slow but sure progression, as I believe there may have been some trouble right behind, but that settles out very quickly.
Cazzola.
Trafari to the inside, and now yellow flag out. Traber Burns sideways on the back straightaway.
And looks like someone else may have spun just afterwards, maybe after the 0-2 goes around, and indeed so the 17 of Declan George goes for the spill as he was trying to avoid the 0-2, went around himself. And also at the same time, Gabe Cazzola went hard into the outside wall once again. So turn 2 clearly being calamity cornered here tonight, Kenneth.
It's been the trouble spot for a bulk of the drivers in this field. Let's get another look from Burns, who ends up in his second caused caution of the night. And there's the battle up in the front. Ollie Reeves, Michael Walls, kind of the back end of that train. And Austin Mitty in front. And Burns just loses the rear end of the car. No help from behind, no help at all. And right behind is Justin Ron Rivers-Jones. They just barely eke by. Declan George almost thought he got the hole in the wall, but then he goes sideways. My goodness, that was super close. Between the spinning Burns and then the trailing Justin Rott. Let's see if we can get a better look at how Rock got away from that. But that was maybe a couple feet between those two cars.
I think this one will tell the story. Let's watch this. There goes the 0-2, back up the racetrack, and that's never a good sight.
It's a blip of the throttle, too. Doesn't even hop on the brakes because he's got enough space and gets around the spinning Burns, who ends up causing the yellow flag. And once more, we're going to be under the iRacing official pace car, just a little over halfway in this race. And when we got our last green flag restart, telemetry told us that if we went green the rest of the way, we would go 37 minutes. It's still about 30 minutes and 15 seconds to go if we continue to go green flag racing from here on out. And a big time decision for those in the mid-pack. Brad Sawensky from 8th on back will lead almost everybody down pit road.
Remember the magic number I was talking about? That's now 34 laps to go.
And so everyone decides this is their moment to come in. That's Duncan Fall, the 61 car. Steven Maggio, former race leader, decides he's going to come down pit road again now that he's in the mid-pack. Trafari is in.
Could see 2 tires there.
And here we go. Interesting calls down pit road. The top 11 or so drivers stay out, and everyone else coming in.
Potential 2 tires on Maggio, and indeed so. We just knew it. He pitted about 10 or 15 laps ago, and most of the field that were behind him had gone nearly a full tank. So Maggio will be the first. He'll be 2 tires out with fuel, so he's going to not lose nearly as much track position, and he'll be one of those first to be able to attack with the slightly better tires of the field. Beaumont is on 30 laps on his run, and on his run is Gino Maro, or excuse me, Wyatt Roberts in the 42 and 5th. those guys will be looking to pit here sooner rather than later. And then most of the rest of the drivers that stayed out can at least go another 10, tops 15 laps in this stage, or in this segment of the race. And there's Trafari, who's gotten that damage repair fixed. And Connor, it's been an up and down race for you right now. You're just outside the top 10. Can you talk us through what the roller coaster of emotions has been like and what the play is with this strategy call?
Yeah, well, I got wheel damage on lap 8, got a few good time cautions there, and then that whole, I don't know when I got my front damage. I think it was when Austin Dorn spun off a 2, I pancaked someone. So I've just been trying to work up through the field right now, take some fresh tires here. I felt like I was getting a little tight there on the last run compared to the others. Close on fuel though, so just trying to save some fuel here and just kind of see how these cautions play out.
And with the cautions and how they played out so far in this race, what would you say is the biggest challenge in trying to go about your race with the cautions flag coming out as much as they are?
It kind of just depends really on how the restarts play out, because with all these like 2-lap runs that caution, it's like you really gotta get all you can get on the restarts, so it's really hectic, and that's what's causing most of these wrecks. But once we get spread out, it's a lot easier to pass people. But once you get that clean air, man, you don't want to let go of it from what I've heard. So if I have an opportunity to take maybe 2 tires later on, I might do it.
Well, thank you, Connor, and we wish you good luck on this restart.
Thank you.
There's Connor Trafari, and you heard it right there. The track position just matters, and if you pit now, you probably don't have to pit to the end of the race. You heard him saying that they were close on fuel. They're going to be tight and saving. Basically saying if the field pits, we can stay out and take that track position that is clearly so important for the final run.
But they're also hinting at if this race continues the way it has been, we have more opportunities to save fuel and we'll be more comfortable to make the race.
Yeah.
And then we'll gain the track position. So
and if these cautions keep coming out, there's still that possibility of overtime.
that is true. And then for a lot of the guys in the field, it could be either a big concern or not, whether you have enough fuel to make it all the way to the end of overtime. But that's a conversation for later. We still have bulk of this race to go. Inside 32 laps remaining. And once again, we are back to double file restart. So we had a long enough green flag run. Race control decides, so let's go double wide again. Moreno will be on the outside of the front row. Bomar, again the control car. It's 2 Toyotas on the inside of rows 1 and 2 with Quincy Strawhacker in 3rd. And Andretti Robinson rolling 4th. That bright yellow Chevrolet of Wyatt Roberts, the Daytona International Speedway winner from this season. He'll be on the inside of row 3 with Merrill on the outside. First time we go double wide on a restart in a little while. It's James Bomar and Ethan Fonseca Moreno once again in control of the field from Indianapolis. 31 laps to go at the Yard of Bricks.
And there was Bomar getting clear for the top spot immediately. Strawhacker with a great restart. He's going to clear up into the 2nd place position. Moreno trying to fight back, but can't quite do it. He gets up in front of Moreno, has to check up. That could be Andretti potential move, but he doesn't take advantage of that. Gino Mero moves up into 5th. AJ Hyder sliding up into 6th. And look at with the chaos back behind this top 10.
And that was a smart move by Strawhacker. Crossed the nose of Moreno. They're exiting turn 1. Made the 92 car flinch, hop off the gas pedal, and Quincy Strawhacker to a race-high 2nd as Robert Doran and the rest of the field try to settle things out in the back half of the top 10.
Wyatt Roberts has been falling back with these older tires. Everybody just powering by or trying their best to power by the 42. And Doran, one of the latest to get around him and get into a bit clear air. Now here's Christopher Robinson under fire from Jonathan Jurgensmeyer in the 11th place position. And I'll tell you what, Steven Maggio on this restart has lost out, or has not really gained as many spots as you would think, because that 51 is nowhere to be seen.
Remember, he came down pit road with the bulk of the drivers in this field, and Maggio is still struggling to get his pace going. He's at the back end of this huge pack of cars. Ellis Wells, that pink and white Chevrolet in the rearview mirror now, Maggio, and to the inside in turn 3, Trafari, Miles, Duncan Fall, and many others still scrapping their way in the middle of this pack with 30 laps to go. Maggio squeezes on by. He'll get to the inside of Michael Walls. And while Christopher Robinson and the runner-up from Charlotte, Malachi Drake, try to fight off of turn 4. And this is where Trafari mentioned, I mean, it would be very difficult to move up through, and why track position matters so much. You'd rather be in the top 5, just kind of single file running very calmly, instead of being here in this mid-pack where it is an absolute brawl to gain any edge possible.
Yeah, everybody's trying their best to move up into the front, so they're not going to give you anything. And you see Walls just trying to get that clean air. The car in front gets loose, and now Walls has a run and tries to see if he can peek to the inside. So there goes the 24, looking low here, trying to see if he can make a run at Malachi Drake, but doesn't quite take it, not yet at least. And Drake will kind of go down to the bottom, try to shut that one off. In the process, here comes now Jonathan Jurgensmeyer with a potential move on Randall Payne for the 9th spot. And Jurgensmeyer is the highest running cars of those that made a pit stop into this race. Look at the block by Quincy Strawhacker in the front, I believe that was. He had an issue, and he lost a couple of spots here. Now, actually, even Bomar had an issue, because now the whole 5 is under a blanket.
Yeah, they were nearly 3 wide for the lead. Moreno crosses in front of Strawhacker. Same move that Strawhacker made in the entry of turn 1 about 2 to 3 laps ago off the restart. And Andretti Robinson on the outside. There is on the inside Gino Mero. And AJ Hyder, his slow but sure comeback is starting to become reality here inside the final 28 from Indianapolis. Bomar under fire. Now it relinquishes. So it's about 0.4 of a second back to Moreno, who washes up in turn 3. And phenomenal racing we're watching at the front of this field. And as you're watching the group of cars at the front take center stage here, coming to 27 laps to go, you'll notice that a lot of them are wearing different paint schemes tonight. That's because, of course, tomorrow is Independence Day, at the start of Independence Day weekend for the American folks. And Francisco, I don't think we had a chance to talk about it just because of the amount of yellows, all the chaos. We've had to talk about more of the action on track, but a lot of the drivers in the red, white, and blue edition schemes tonight in celebration of Independence Day. Moreno, the Mexican native from Guadalajara, going to try to go for his Mexican roots with a Telcel car in P2.
Yeah, with the shades of Sergio Perez and Daniel Suarez in the process there, the Mexican native trying to honor his heritage there. And we kind of dipped our toes into it in the pre-race show, but there's just been so much going on during the race that we haven't secondary chance of kind of mentioning it here. I mean, I just only came across how we got into that situation on the front straightaway. Bomar had a big issue off of turn 2. Let's see if we can get the replay assistance here to kind of demonstrate how that all happened. Bomar had a major incident off of turn 2, and that's what got him. You see him right there, tag the outside wall, and even Strawhacker in the process got into the outside wall, and that just allowed everybody to bunch up. Strawhacker made the move to the inside. He decided to go for the race lead, and as those two were racing, they just kept trading paint, bouncing off one another, and that's what allowed Moreno and Andretti Robinson all to close the gap up. I mean, look how quickly that 1 second lead disappeared from everybody.
Yeah, and that's what invited literally everyone. There's Strawhacker down low. Then Moreno makes the aggressive move to the inside. Strawhacker was blocking all the way to the inside wall, so that's why they had just about made contact when they were entering the first corner. So there's the door-to-door issue. And then Moreno takes the spot. He dives it into turn 1. And the same move that Strawhacker made earlier on in the race pays off for the 92 car, who's now holding off into second place, but still has yet to gain any ground on Bomar. It's been more about the 15 car making hiccups rather than kind of letting these drivers move on through, or rather Moreno's raw pace to catch up to the race leader. And so it's single file through the top group. Austin Doran has made a solid progression up to P7. Remember, he pitted about 28 laps ago. He's on one of the interesting methods of either tire saving and fuel saving to the end of this race. And then back through 15th on back is where you're finding some good battles here. Randall Payne, Malachi Drake for 11th.
And soon enough, some of those leaders are going to make their way down pit road. One of the first is going to be race leader James Bomar, who's actually just making his way down pit road right now. So clearly I was reading his mind. He went 38 laps on that stint. So clearly a long enough performance, even with those caution laps that allowed Bomar to extend. And we could see Moreno and the rest of the field that has stayed out possibly go maximum another 5 or so laps. And one of those drivers that could go a little bit longer in that group is Doran, but not much longer. He can probably do another 7 to 9 laps on the number 52. And if it all ends up properly cycling out, that should put the 8th place driver of Jonathan Jurgensmeyer into the race lead.
And you know, that was kind of the situation that Steven Maggio perhaps was fearing earlier on in this race, that things would go long enough to the point where Maggio would be forced to hit pit road under green, which, you know, all by yourself with nobody else following through is a bit of a dire circumstance, but there will be others joining him the next lap by. Here's Moreno from the lead, AJ Hyder from about the top 5, Wyatt Roberts is in as well, a 3-car breakaway into pit road. Quincy Strawhacker will lead his first lap of the race tonight.
I will say, if some of them can stay on the lead lap, it won't be that bad of a strategy. If a lot of this race goes green, they get a late caution, it puts real pressure on those that stayed out to make a trip down pit road because of how old the tires are. I know we've seen tire deltas, but a lot of that has been with plenty of caution laps. Tie that in with green flag tire delta, and that could play a big role in the closing laps of this race, but we'll have to get to that point to actually see it play out. Strawhacker now leads the race from Andretti Robinson. You see Austin Doran just behind this. Remember, Doran can go probably a little bit longer than most of these guys that are making their pit now, and there's the 49 who nearly got hit by Andretti Robinson as he was making his way into pit road. Now Doran with the possible run to Robinson to try and go for the actual top spot. He peeks to the inside, so it looks like a move being made here for the race lead. Doran to the inside of Robinson.
And the difference, 4 laps to the favor of the 90 or the 52 car rather, to the inside right now. And the fight for the lead in turn 2 will carry to the back straightaway. Gino Mero will have a chance to make an imprint for third. Doran is loose. Robinson fight backs hard on the outside, and he'll have the race lead confirmed as they enter turn 3. Mero wanting a bit of that drafting help to give Doran. He's going to be back to the inside entering turn 3. And Andretti Robinson, for the first time tonight, will lead from the Brickyard with Doran right in tow.
And he drove that thing into the corner to make sure he cleared the 52, but now he's going to bring it down pit road, and I think that's exactly why he wants to get the track position. And Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, who pitted very recently, is going to bring it down pit lane. Very interesting call for a driver who very well could have possibly tried to stretch it to the end like mostly everybody on his strategy. Very interesting to see this.
Yeah, he was about 11 laps deep into his run, maybe 12 laps just about before coming down pit road, so he's not confident that he can take it all the way to lap number 80, while Austin Doran and Gino Mero will extend their invitation for first and second out to the back straightaway for one more time at least. And we'll see when they come down.
And the yellow flag is out.
Oh, and there's the caution, a huge breakaway. And who's in trouble down the back straightaway? There was someone slow, as Andretti Robinson is just now coming off of pit road. That could be a massive blow to their strategies to make it to the end if they do not get lucky with a wave around.
Well, some of them are going to be able to keep a spot on the lead lap, so it's not all lost for some of them. But there's a few cars that did get trapped a lap down in the process, and they might not be nearly as fortunate. And man, as it looks like it was actually Ellis Wells in trouble on the back straightaway from what I'm seeing. Looks like just some hard racing gone wrong.
So get an eye on exactly what transpired to go wrong and to bring us our most recent yellow after our longest green flag run of the race, with Austin Doran leading his first share of laps tonight and now getting to enjoy a bit more of that time at the very front. So we're going to look at how things ended up with Ellis Wells. I believe Randall Payne was also taking part in this. So this was fighting in the mid-pack right around where Connor Trafari, Steven Maggio were. So this is in the deep portions of the top 10 and a little bit just outside of it. And Wells makes the move down low, business as usual, until I believe there was a bit of contact, but not enough to fully send Wells for the spin until there, disconnected, but reappears into the outside wall and nearly had it saved at full speed until he gets hooked around again. And Wells officially goes backwards on the back straightaway. The field goes by to the inside. Ollie Reeves just barely squeaking through on the outside wall. And there is what ignites the yellow, and there's a big time decision to make on pit road. Doran will bring almost the entire field in this time.
Well, we know Doran had to pit, and Malachi Drake will stay out. Remember, he's one of those drivers that tries to stretch the field as much as possible. Nearly won Charlotte doing that. Steven Maggio will stay out. We know he likes the track position, and if we keep getting those caution flags, this could definitely work out in Maggio's favor. Rivers Jones, another one of those drivers to stay out. I don't think this is a bad call for any of them, especially Malachi Drake and Steven Maggio. Drake with the fuel saving, Maggio with the track position.
So it's Drake, Maggio, Jones, Burns, Bomar, the top 5. So in fact, things do end up working out in the favor of James Bomar, pitted from the lead all by himself, but had the very positive situation the lap later of Moreno, AJ Hyder, and a bunch of others hitting the pit lane, and what followed suit was everyone coming down.
And that's exactly what I was alluding to during the run, is that if you run long enough, most of the field will probably come back down pit road anyway. So if you, as long as you're on the lead lap, stay out and take the track position away, and luckily for them, they don't have too many laps on their tires, so it's a win-win.
It's a good situation for Bomar and those at the front, and like we've seen so far over this race, old tires haven't really mattered as much as maybe we anticipated. You can stay out front on an older set of Goodyear Eagles and make things work.
Well, I mean, we also haven't gotten that many green flag laps on a tire set to see just how much the difference is. Most of them has been purely caution laps, so it's not like we've seen cars on 20, 25 lap old tires with green flag laps on them versus maybe only like maximum of 10 green flag laps on them. So interesting situation we got going on, and it looks like you're caught up here with Ellis Wells, Kenneth.
Indeed, caught up with Ellis. Ellis, you got a copy with us?
Yep, I hear you.
All right, well, a tough situation there off of turn 2. You're running in the mid-pack. There's contact with Randall Payne. Just walk us through the situation there and how that all transpired from your point of view.
I mean, yeah, the whole race just been kind of trying to avoid all the wrecks for the most part, because that seems like how this race has been going, a lot of cautions and wrecks. So I've just been trying to keep distance from people, and that time, I thought in the car that he had just, out of turn 2, came down on me and then turned me, but looking at the replay, it looks like it might have been netcode, but it felt like I just got turned into from the outside, walled in, then managed to save it, so I thought we were good, no caution came out, and then just still had his car in my right rear, so I'm gonna have to look at it more to see whether it was like fully netcode or a little bit of me or a little bit of him, but unfortunate to be in another wreck this season.
Well, the good news is that there is still about 18 laps to go at the stripe, and from what we've seen this evening, the yellows have really taken over. So what's going to be your kind of comeback strategy to savor what's left of this race and try and recuperate for a good finish?
Well, still got a set of tires, one extra set of tires, so I think I might just, depending on how many people are on the lead lap when I catch up, either sit back and watch the chaos unfold or try to actually charge back through to get to 20th or 15th, because I don't think we're done with the cautions tonight, but it's just where am I going to be when the caution comes out? Am I going to be in front of the wreck or behind it?
Well, Ellis, we appreciate the time. Obviously a tough break there on the back straightaway, but hopefully you're able to recover and get a good finish out of this, and best of luck on the restart.
Yeah, thank you guys.
So Ellis Wells involved in our most recent caution of the night alongside Randall Payne, as we will reset the field and have a look up front where Malachi Drake, who was just a bit short at Charlotte Motor Speedway a couple weeks back, trying to get his first win of the season. Steven Maggio, the defending champ, on the outside of row 1, and a pair of Toyotas inside and outside of row 2. Rivers Jones, that Visa Cash App Red Bull looking Toyota Camry on the inside, and Traber Burns, despite all of the adversity and the crashes he has been involved in, still a relatively clean car, and he's got the track position to show for it. So green flag restart with 18 laps to go from the Brickyard. All eyes on Malachi Drake as he leads them through the restart zone, that orange painted wall on the inside and outside walls. Green flag in the air. Jones is going to follow through. Drake is clear to turn 1.
And looks like Jones peeking to the inside of Maggio for the second place spot. Maggio tries his best to roll that outside, and sideways is Drake in front of the
He'll catch Maggio, Burns, James Bomar. They're all spinning at the exit of turn 2.
and they're coming back up.
And it's going to be ugly as they come back up the racetrack. I don't know if anyone else was involved. I think everyone got away. And that is literally the worst case scenario for all of those guys who stayed out that long, hoping that the track position decision would pay off.
And the seas just completely parted open for Rivers Jones to take away the top spot.
Oh my. Just about a 3 to 4 car incident there in the short shoot off of turn 1. And let's figure out how that all unfolded. But you saw it live as they were coming into the corner. Malachi Drake in the race lead. He was clear until and he was sideways. The rear end just steps out. Here's a look off the restart. Fantastic jump for Drake. He clears the field into turn 1. The real trouble is where Jones and Maggio might have been, but then Drake is loose. He's sliding, and he almost saves it, and then he just travels down the banking. Burns, Maggio, Bomar getting a piece of it as they all come back up the racetrack. And that is danger at its finest, Francisco, to see these cars sliding back up with a chance to ricochet and get hit by everyone else. I think Bomar may have had the worst end of the stick as he was coming back up the speedway. Here's a look from the Mountain Dew car coming up. Oh, my.
Oh, man. Hey, man, that's going to be some big damage on the front end for the 28, more so than the 15. And I think everybody there a bit unfortunate because Malachi Drake nearly tagged the outside wall with his right rear. It didn't register whatsoever, and that's what resulted in him sliding down in front of everybody. Not on purpose, of course, but I think they were all hoping that just maybe the right rear would hit the wall, and that would result in him bouncing back towards it. Unfortunately for just about everybody behind him, that Bomar gets the piece of it. Luckily, it stayed off the inside wall, but it resulted in him going back up to the outside. Burns, Maggio all get a piece of it. And like I said, Rivers Jones, just the seas absolutely parted in the middle of nowhere for him to just go up there and take that race lead away.
Well, he's kind of probably thinking to himself, well, how did this happen? But he's probably not disappointed to see how everything unfolded, although one of his teammates involved, of course, Steven Maggio, getting a bunch of damage. Here's the right side look from what Jones was eyeing down at. Of course, he's trying to catch Drake. He's on the inside of Steven Maggio for seconds. Sideways goes Drake, and watch this.
Oh, wow. Nearly got tagged in the right rear in the process, and luckily enough, the caution came out quickly because there's Moreno was ready to jump at it.
Do you want to guess how much distance was between the spinning Drake and then Rivers Jones?
I don't want to guess, but it's very close.
It is probably insanely close. I'd say within at least a foot or less between those two cars. Let's get a better look at it. Here's the onboard look from the rear end of Jones.
There's Maggio, then there's Drake.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God. Yeah. You probably could fit a couple pieces of paper in there.
That is as close can get. And Jones escapes with a clean race car, and he'll lead his first share of laps tonight from Indy, albeit in a situation that, you know, mostly was luck, but Jones is going to like the situation now that he's in clean air as we get to the restart. Moreno, Robinson, Strawhacker, and Hyder, your current top 5. And, you know, we haven't talked much about AJ Hyder, who, through the last 2 races, through Sonoma and Las Vegas, has come away with a runner-up finish and still looking down the barrel for what could be his first win of the season tonight, entering the final 25. Rather 15 we're going to have here at Indianapolis. It's way less than I almost thought. Not good at math, but that's okay.
They're just saying you're not good at math. You work with numbers all the time, Kenneth.
Yeah, but it's, you know, sometimes the mind escapes.
It happens. It just happens to the best of us. It's okay.
Look, you're an aiming pilot. You're an aspiring pilot. So I think you deal with more specific math calculations than I do. I'm just a journalism major.
Just a journalism major. Folks, this is a first-hand view. Kenneth does not give him credit, man.
Okay, well.
Well, I will say this, though, that, it's just very difficult. But you look at the front of the field, Rivers Jones has been competitive here at Indianapolis before. I've seen it firsthand. In the Slide Job Series, he was one of those drivers up in the front before he got involved in his fair share of troubles, but he was there, top 3 in that entire event, and it was with the Xfinity cars, but even with the next-gen cars, notably was very, very, very fast, and I think he could definitely put up a fight here in these closing laps, especially if we get these restarts and he holds on to the lead. Very crucially, Ethan Fonseca Moreno goes to his inside, puts Andretti Robinson on the outside. Anything could happen in the Mono 14.
And these 3 drivers had phenomenal runs at Las Vegas last week, barring the situation off of turn 4 where, you know, Maggio was able to squeak away for the top 10. But in front of that, you know, where guys were single file, making battles for position, Moreno ended up 4th in that race in an event where him and his teammate Jaden Porter were scrapping through the field because they started at the back and had a tough time at moments trying to get through the guys in front. but Moreno was able to squeak away a top 5, and Andretti Robinson was in the top 10 that entire race. Even with the cautions, the strategy, everything in between, Robinson was able to stay up front. He ended up with 7th, and then Rivers Jones followed right behind in 8th place. So 3 drivers who are coming off of a very strong week in our last West Coast Swing race in Sin City, trying to replicate it and maybe get their first win or third win if you're the case of Moreno here tonight from the Brickyard, as Jones and Robinson will lead us off turn 4, bringing the field to turn 1 under green with 14 laps remaining after what has been an attrition-filled night from Speedway, Indiana. Jones in control of the restart. Green flag, back to turn 1.
And a great jump for Jones to get clear. It looks like Robinson almost got clear of Moreno, but Moreno had a better second phase of the restart. He'll be side by side for that position as Strawhacker gets clear for the 4th spot. Moreno's sideways a little bit off of turn 1, but here door to door with the 45. Robinson trying to slide up and clear for second, but tags the outside wall here to help Moreno. Peeks to the inside. Moreno with the block is able to hold on to second.
Look at all that draft though on the inside of the racetrack. Strawhacker's going to use it to get to the inside in turn 3. Moreno has to watch out to the bottom of the racetrack. They wash up in the hill to turn 3. Moreno fights back and takes away second. Now we're 3 wide as they come into turn 4.
Yeah, Moreno had to drive his way into that corner deeper than he wanted to just to avoid the contact and still keep the spot. It worked out well for him, but look what it did further back in the field. They are all scrambling inside this top 10 and on.
All about aggression through these final 13. It's either now or never if we don't get a yellow flag until the end of this race. There's AJ Hyder getting to the bottom end of Austin Drawn. Bottom shelf through turns 1 and 2 down the short chute. Strawhacker still breaking even with the car on the outside of Robertson. Now Strawhacker is loose. A rare mistake, and he's spun on the back straightaway. In goes Bascombe, Gazzola, Wells, but Dimlick, Burns, and the entire field. It is a parking lot down the back straightaway.
The big one with 13 laps to go on the back straightaway of Indianapolis, and with the way this race has gone, Kenneth, that was just about the last thing that needed to happen, was the very big wreck with multiple cars, and sure enough, there it is, and huge damage to Quincy Strawhacker, who's had a great run the entirety of the evening. Unfortunately, that great run will not have a good result associated with it. Numerous other cars. Draper Burns, who was involved in the previous caution before this, gets more damage to his race car, despite not pitting on the last one. And there's numerous big names involved in this one. And here's where there you see Strawhacker and Roberts. They were going side by side for the spot. And on the inside, you're going to see right here, just Luz gets the 49, overcorrects it. First handful of cars get away, but from Traver Burns on back, it's just not nearly the same luck. And you see them converge, and that's the big portion of the wreck started. As soon as they converge and the only option you have is the outside wall grass, that's really what set things into motion.
Look at the bulk of drivers that are involved. Steven Maggio gets a piece of this as well. Justin Rott, who barely got by, he gets spun around on the back straightaway. Gabe Cazzola gets injured in this one, but Dimlick spun around. Brad Sawinski somehow gets away. Traver Burns involved in, I believe, what is his 3rd or 4th incident tonight. And still he escapes with relatively minor damage, but for Strawhacker, that is the end of what's been a very successful race, in which he's been able to get around a lot of the trouble. He's been very fast. Let's even get a good look from the Papyrus Chevrolet, Brad Sawinski, as he's in the middle of the field right before this yellow. And there was actually trouble. Larry Miles and Randall Payne sideways in turn 2, but that's independent of this. Look how Sawinski gets away. Is that Lady Luck or what? I'm not sure. And then a final car, and then another car in there as well. At least 3 or more cars that were spun around. Dane Cruz in there. That was Duncan Fall in the 61 car. And our biggest crash of the night is sure to DNF many with potential suspension damage. We came into this caution with at least 2 to 3 or 4 drivers officially out on a DNF list. Oh, that list may indeed expand a ton. As Gabe Cazzola's on pit road, Traver Burns getting his car repaired, Duncan Fall is in, Dane Cruz is in, Amir Bascombe got a piece of that. Front end nose damage for the Red Bull Chevrolet. Ollie Reeves is in as well. And it's just a huge heartbreaker for a bulk of the guys in the field. And many of them sustaining solid runs up until this point. You think of how strong Steven Maggio has been all night long. And after his most recent incident, thought he had the winning strategy and just frustrated with another week of action. And this time may not be able to fight for a solid top 10 effort like he did last week at Vegas, even with all of the trouble that he encountered then. And so we will be under the yellow flag once more with 10 laps to go and counting before the end of this race. Rivers Jones in control, followed by Ethan Fonseca Moreno, Andretti Robinson, Wyatt Roberts, and Austin Duran, the rest of the top 5. So just a quick reminder that there is more action to come on the KBueno Racing Network within the following weeks. We return for Drop in the Hammer Cup Series playoff action July 13th at the virtual Darlington Raceway as you see the best of the round of 12 take on the track Too Tough to Tame. That race comes to your way July 13th at about 8:05 p.m. Eastern on the KBueno Racing Network, followed by the return of the SAAC Cup Series. We go racing once again after the 2-week summer break at the Iowa Speedway, the track owned by NASCAR Hall of Famer Rusty Wallace. On July 24th, we'll go green flag racing. Then on a Thursday night at around 8:30 p.m. Eastern, you can find the coverage here on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel. Obviously, dropping the Hammer Cup Series off for Independence Day weekend, so they will not be racing this Sunday on the 6th. They will return for action on the 13th. And then the Iowa Speedway taking on the field of the SAAC Cup Series in Season 4 after the 2-week summer break. And then after Texas, and then the All-Star race in the Bluegrass State at Kentucky, we'll have the Midseason Madness start at Portland International Raceway on August 14th. We'll roll through the regular season. The Eliminator Chase for the championship starts mid-September, and that begins at Darlington. And we'll have all of that coverage for you on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel as we will get ready for this restart inside single-digit laps to go. It's Rivers Jones at the head of the field, Andretti Robinson to play a bit of defense, and look at your top 5, maybe even the top 10. You do not see a race win in hand for a bulk of these guys other than 2. Connor Trafari, who's in 10th, and the man rolling inside on row number 2, Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who captured 2 wins in a row, getting his first in Michigan, getting the second in a strategy thriller at America's Home for Racing in Concord, North Carolina at Charlotte. And Rivers Jones trying to become the 5th different winner alongside everyone else, but the 26 car will be under the most pressure. He'll be the man everyone wants to beat as they come to the restart zone this time by. The 18-year-old out of Charlotte, North Carolina, in Rivers Jones will lead the field off the final corner to the front straightaway and back through the restart zone. Green flag in the air, waves with 9 laps to go.
There's another great jump for Jones to get well out in front. Moreno gets a better launch this time to remain door to door. Michael Walls moves down aggressively to the inside to go 3 wide, nearly making contact there for that spot. He has to back out. There's Doran nearly making contact with Andretti Robinson.
The aggression all-time high right now, especially in the mid-pack. Keep a keen eye on what happens in turn 2. We saw a big crash happen with Quincy Strawhacker. This time, it's clean and green, and they are snake trailing down the back straightaway for any bit of tow they can get. Jones is clear by 3 car lengths. Moreno chases in turn 3. Robinson, Dawn, and Hyder try to square it off in the short shoot to turn 4.
And 3 wide further back, Travis Van Oosendorp in the middle of it with Gabe Cazzola nearly 4 wide. Dane to the middle. It's like, I believe Steven Maggio sideways. There's the 61 as there's more contact. Maggio gets hit, and that should put us under the caution. No yellow.
To the line with 8 laps to go. Maggio's under the racing line, so we will stay green. Maggio's not going from bad to worse. He's spinning now.
There's the
on
caution.
The front straightaway, and there is the yellow ignited.
He spun it in front of the 60. That was going to bring out the caution. And I think he alt-F forward.
Yep. Looks like the frustrations has kicked in for Maggio, the defending champ, out of the race at Indy. And we will try a restart again inside 7 laps to go.
I mean, you saw the incident happen. Surprisingly, even with the hit, that the caution didn't come out. But I don't think there's any more cars on their way to the scene at that moment in time. And as soon as 60 got near, 51 will spin again.
So here's a look at it. They were just about 3 wide ahead of that KBRN red, white, and blue Toyota. And there's contact from Payne that travels to Fall, that ricochets into Maggio. And Fall does a good job of hopping on the brakes. Justin Rock, it's a huge lick of the spinning Maggio. And because he's so far under the racing line, there's no caution flag until just about here.
And there's the 60. So, and you see he ulted at 4 because he noticed it. Knew that it was going to bring out the caution when that happened, but unfortunately for him, it was too late, and iRacing had triggered the yellow by then. A good enough effort to try and save the race car, but just route had nowhere to go. And there's the hit, but when the hit happened, he was just no other cars were showing up to the scene.
And the steering doesn't really look bent. The car just steps out of line. And there's Nicholas Badimlik. Maggio tries to alt F4 in enough time not to bring out the yellow. Of course, the race officials will have a very good look at that, just to make sure that Maggio was not trying to intentionally cause the yellow. But it seems like with that decision right after, it's kind of like he kind of knew that the yellow was going to come out, and he didn't want that to happen. So instead of staying in the race, he immediately disconnects. But it still will be under review, most likely. And with that situation, Jones will have to deal with another green flag restart that he will be in control of, possibly inside 5 laps to go. The pressure is there. Moreno has been a little bit close, but Jones has fired off well through the last several restarts. It's just been the biggest concern about what happens in turn 2, what happens in turn 4, what happens when they go down the straightaway, because the chaos kicks in. And like you mentioned, Francisco, with everything with Van Dusendorp and everyone in the mid-pack, they were fighting for what they could, 3 and 4 nearly wide into the final corner.
And Michael Walls on these restarts has also been fairly aggressive. He's going to be in 7th, a little bit further back in the Exalted Chevrolet. Could see some more intense action on these restarts, but I think eventually when does Moreno decide he's going to take it to the outside, so long as we remain double file, which I believe, if how you explain the rule to me, is that even at this stage in the race, if we keep getting those successive yellows, it is still double wide because of the lateness of the race. So if that's the case, when does Moreno choose that he's going to be aggressive and go to the other line to try and battle out and try and get a good enough restart to stay side by side rather than lose out ground on the restart itself?
Yeah, it's a good call. And yeah, the rule says that within 20 miles of the race distance being ended, then they will go double file for the rest of the event. So that is the rule from Race Control. Let's get a quick word with Andretti Robinson. Andretti had a strong car tonight. Beautiful red, white, and blue colors tonight. You're inside the top 3 in this final stint. What's kind of going through your mind as you get ready for this next restart?
Honestly, man, I just need to go at the right time. Rivers keeps getting the jump on me. I know Ethan's gonna take the inside, but I've been struggling getting up the speed, man. I feel like I don't have the handling I need. Maybe I burnt my tires too much, but I'll try.
You know, this race has been all about survival, and you've done a good job at surviving so far. Are you expecting any sort of that elbows out action at the front of this field, knowing that this restart is within single-digit laps to go, and we could be very well into overtime if we get another?
I fully expect elbows out. Considering how this race has been, no one's giving it an inch. It's a single-lane track, so everyone's always going to hate each other, air pack each other. It's kind of annoying, but this new update has kind of produced that kind of racing. But I'll try to be as clean as possible. I think I have good relationships with the guys around me, but I don't know, man. I just hope to get a good finish.
Well, hey, man, it's a good start on this restart. Inside Road 2, it's a good place to be, and hopefully things end up well for you on the restart if we're ending up to the checkered flag. Best of luck.
All right. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
So Andretti Robinson will rejoin his teammates and try and hone in a good restart here inside 4 laps to go, knowing that if we do get another caution flag, we are indeed going into overtime for the first time this evening, as the field will try to double up. I think everyone at the back is going slow enough. They're just going to figure out where they're going to be, and that's how you see it. Malachi Drake is the last car in that group. There are still more cars that are trying to catch up because of the attrition that we've seen so far this evening. Well, Francisco, final few laps. We know another yellow will bring out an extended race into overtime. what kind of things do you expect here?
Probably the same thing we've seen most of the night, just some utter chaos and more mess. But I think the biggest thing is, can anybody get a good enough restart to get up there with Jones? We've seen Jones get those launches. We've seen the leader generally get great launches and get nearly half a second clear through turn 2. So if anybody can get a good enough launch, at least through that first lap, how does that bode for their chances of trying to fight for the win?
Well, it's all going to be hanging in the balance through this final stretch of the race. 4 laps to go at the Yard of Bricks, with Rivers Jones and Ethan Fonseca Moreno still inside and outside of the front row. Andretti Robinson inside row 2. There is that hotspot Chevrolet of Austin Duran outside in 4th place. And then AJ Hyder, Wyatt Roberts will be inside and outside of row number 3. Keep an eye on some names inside this top 10 that could come away with a good finish tonight. Michael Walls in 7th. Trevor Haley inside the top 8. Gene O'Mara, Brad Sawinski on the inside and outside of the top 10. Well, here we go. Could this be the final green flag restart of the race, or will we see this event extended into overtime? It all comes down to this restart potentially. Jones fires off on the gas pedal. Green flag in the air. 4 laps to go, and Robinson is to the inside for second to turn 1.
Robinson to the inside, has this position on Moreno, but Moreno rolls the outside better, and he's able to take second away. Is not nearly as far back on Jones as he has been on the previous restarts, but he misses the apex a little bit there. They're side by side for third, as now there goes Jones starting to snake trail, trying to break the draft that Moreno has on his race cars. The gap's just over 0.3 of a second, as there's the Hornet's Nest with Hyder to the inside of Doran.
That battle continues into turn 3. They remain door to door. Hyder planting the nose down low. Doran strikes the outside wall, so Hyder breaks free. Michael
big
Walls
wreck in
the
turn
third
4.
car, and now there's a car in the outside wall. It is Dane Cruz to the outside barrier, and we will end up in SAAC Cup Series overtime from Indianapolis.
And Dane Cruz gets the bad end of the stick there. Gets turned into the outside wall. He was racing with Larry Miles. Numerous cars were bouncing off that outside wall, and just unfortunately for the 07, it just looks like some minor contact is what sends him going around. He was around the area of contact. Might have some damage to his race car. There's a look at it there. The 07 center of your screen. There's Jurgensmeyer. There's Larry Miles. There's further front, who drifts up high, gets into the wall. Miles looks like he goes down to try to avoid the 9 and just gets into the 07.
And it's a hard lick for the Nikon Acura of Dane Cruz, who's making his 3rd SAAC Cup Series start this season, his first return since June 5th at Michigan, where he ended up with a top 5 finish. And, you know, Cruz has been through a lot tonight. He was part of that huge accident down the back straightaway with nowhere to go. You know, several moments where the 07 car had been kind of involved, and here's another look at it with Trafari's tap to the wall. Miles trying to peek through the middle, but there's just no space to cover without making contact. And then Cruz just gets torn up into the outside wall. Most likely he will hit pit road. And once again, we are going to be under yellow, this time with an overtime restart confirmed, as we are inside 3 laps to go. It looks like Connor Trafari may come down pit road to get what is left of his Chevrolet to repair, but he will stay out, and I guess the guys in the back have nothing to lose, so they will come in this time as we'll get the next restart. This is just our 2nd race this season to enter overtime. Our first race that did so was the opener at Daytona. We went 108 laps in the books after several restarts, but then at Michigan, went clean to the end. At Charlotte, went clean to the end. At Sonoma, went clean to the end. At Las Vegas, went clean to the end. So this will be the 2nd ever race of the season to go as far as the race allows it here on overtime, and we'll go past the scheduled distance of the race. I don't know. This is looking very interesting, Francisco. So far, Jones has been in control. I guess that's kind of all he needs. Some solid laps, solid restarts, and so far he's been able to fit the bill quite correctly. It's going to take one mistake to get Moreno, Robinson, and the rest of the company into the ground, but so far Jones has been handling his business in search of his first win.
And I think it's important to mention, Kenneth, that I think Jones is fine with this one overtime restart. I think if we get another one, it starts looking questionable at his fuel because he's gone, as it stands right now, 32 laps on his fuel stint. We've had plenty of caution laps, so what we saw earlier, Bomar go 38, and Maggio went well into the 30s as well. So if we get another caution, it could rival somewhere near the 40 range for him to have to go to the checkered flag at full speed. So if we get a second overtime restart, it could become very questionable for Rivers Jones, and 3 would make it very, very interesting.
Well, Rivers Jones is in search of career win number 2. His first SAAC Cup Series win came in Season 3, late December of 2024, at what is the newly renamed Echo Park Speedway. He was able to grab the win there. But ever since, couple top 10s to his credit, many great runs, but no top 10s in 2025 apart from Las Vegas last Thursday. He had finished in the top 15 at Daytona and at Michigan, but Charlotte was very rough to him, 36th place, and then at Sonoma, his last start before Las Vegas was 32nd. And here he is with a chance to grab his second career SAAC Cup Series victory, with Moreno on the outside, Robinson, Hyder, and Duran the rest of the running top 5. As we'll get set for the 1 restart in overtime, we have several attempts to finish this race under green, and here are the overtime rules. So we'll go green flag racing with 2 to go. We'll try to finish this one under green and get to the white flag. If the leader catches the white flag and a yellow is not thrown on the speedway in the time before that, we will end this race under green no matter what transpires. However, if a yellow does fly before the leader catches the white flag, then we will reset the field and do it all over again on a restart like this. And we have 3 attempts to finish the race under green. If we are on that final attempt at an overtime restart and the leader cannot get to the white flag before a yellow flag raises on the speedway, then the race will end under yellow with the field frozen at the timing of that final caution flag. So Jones is going to hope that this race goes only 1 overtime attempt to the end and not more than that. Again, concerns for fuel may be wide and varied across this field based on how long the field has gone. 33 laps for Rivers Jones. That's the stint he's running on at the moment. So if we end up with a longer end to this race and more overtime restarts, Jones's chance at a victory tonight may be in big-time jeopardy. But for right now, eyes looking forward onto what could be the final restart tonight. Jones in control, Moreno to react, Robinson and Hyder to figure out where they're going to be at the entry of turn 1. Pace car comes down for what could be the last ever time from the Brickyard tonight. Rivers Jones and Ethan Fonseca Moreno stare down the final 5 miles from the Brickyard. Green flag on our first attempt at SAAC Cup Series overtime.
Another good launch for Jones, but Moreno's already clear for second, so he's going to try to hang on as close as he can to that race leader. There's Hyder powering around the outside of Andretti. Robinson third, and Moreno's only 2/10 behind Rivers Jones on this as Jones has a little bit of a moment there in the race lead. Hyder together to catch up to Jones. Here's the draft.
And look down the straightaway. Moreno is getting
He's
closer.
got to run.
He's within a car length. He won't pull out the move in turn 3, and AJ Hyder waits back in third with a chance to strike. Moreno washes up high. He may have just struck in the outside wall, and here comes Hyder to the inside. White flag in the air from Indianapolis. Rivers Jones with 1 more to go before his second Cup Series win.
And they're side by side for second. This is exactly what Rivers Jones wants to see. He takes the white flag. He knows. And on this very lap, Moreno trying to hang on around the outside on AJ Hyder. He almost clears for second. Hyder drifts up there, making contact with themselves, and this is still the best thing that Rivers Jones can see as they continue to race for second. His gap is growing to nearly 3/4 of a second as they get single file lap, but Rivers Jones, Kenneth, does he have the fuel to get around?
He has 2 more corners to decide it as Moreno and Hyder settle out their fight for P2, but that may have just settled in their coffin in a chance for the race victory. Rivers Jones challenges through 3 and 4. He holds on through the overtime restart, and for the second time in his SAAC Cup Series career, welcome to victory lane. Rivers Jones, he wins at Indianapolis.
and the emotions for Rivers Jones. Successful here at Indianapolis, has had plenty of good runs, and he held on very tough on those restarts. Had to execute time and time and time again after dodging that wreck by mere inches, and he earned this one on those late restarts to take it away from two of the best in the last couple of races to get his first win of the season in the Visa Cash App RB number 26. And this is going to be one of those popular win amongst the drivers.
The 18-year-old captures the dub. Michael Walls giving the celebratory, congratulatory tap, as Jones will celebrate a victory for the second time in his career. Again, that most recent victory until this point, December 19th, 2024, at the virtual Echo Park Speedway. But this one hard fought through strategy, through the concerns of fuel to the end, and through one grueling overtime restart. Rivers Jones can call himself a SAAC Cup Series victor again, as he'll celebrate on the front straightaway. Let's see if he has enough fuel to burn it down.
Maybe he parks it. I'm not sure. I think he's trying to park it on the yard of bricks. You normally don't see drivers do burnouts, at least over the yard of bricks, but it looks like he's going to park it right there over that yard of bricks and just have it stand as a symbol. So Rivers Jones, Kenneth, an amazing drive, amazing race that he was able to put on. He was fast all night, missed that wreck by mere inches. So it's not like he lucked into the fast all night long.
And that good look for the screenshot on the yard of bricks. And Rivers Jones captures his second victory of his career, the first of 2025, and he becomes the fifth different winner so far. Since Moreno went back-to-back from Michigan and Charlotte, we have not seen another driver take victory lane more than once this season, so the parity continues. As Jones celebrates on the front straightaway, let's get a look at the full unofficial results after 82 laps and one overtime restart from Indianapolis. Rivers Jones, the winner. Moreno far back in second at 6/10. AJ Hyder walks away with another podium effort in third. Andretti Robinson hangs on for fourth. Austin Duran, solid recovery drive, and he ends up in fifth with Michael Walls in sixth. Gene O'Mero, Trevor Haley, Brad Sawinski, and Wyatt Roberts round out the top 10. A bulk of drivers that found trouble at least once or twice earlier on tonight, and great results for all of them.
11th will go to the Jonathan Jurgensmeyer machine. Ellis Wells will recover up to P12 with Larry Miles in the 13th spot. Ollie Reeves in 14th with Travis Van Oostendorp getting a 15th place result. Gabe Cazola gets 16th. Trafari gets 17th after his late troubles. James Bomar down in 18th after being that incident from the race lead. Malachi Drake will finish 19th, another one of those involved in that. Duncan Fall rounding out the top 20.
So behind them in 21st is Austin Meady in his number 01 car. Jacob Locklear in 22nd. Declan George ends up 23rd with Dane Cruz involved in one of those last cautions to come out tonight in 24th. Traver Burns is 25th with 26th place Nicholas Badimlik, and he's the final car on the lead lap after the end of it. Randall Payne ends up 27th, 3 laps down with Amir Bascombe, Justin Rott, and Steven Maggio rounding out the top 30. Plenty of races becoming dire later on in the goings, but particularly for Maggio as he alt forward after creating a late race yellow.
31st will go to Quincy Strawhacker, who also had a good run going for him. Jason Marshall will finish 32nd. Christopher A. Robinson will finish 33rd with Nicholas Bauman in the 34th spot. Nicholas Boriski will finish 35th with Arkeelan Belsha finishing down in the 36th spot. Dale Beck will finish 37th. Cody Riveros in 38th. And last week's race winner, Gabriel Tahari, was the first man out, finishes 39th.
So that is your field from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and it is our time to bring in Rivers Jones, who for the second time in his SAAC Cup Series career can call himself a winner. Rivers, an unbelievable hold-off for the rest of this field, but one quick question before we dive into the details of that final restart. You went as far as 35 laps on a tank of gas. Were you confident that you could make it even if we continue through overtime?
Yeah, I was pretty confident. With all those cautions we had at the end of the race, I was able to save a fair amount of gas, and I was pretty confident I was going to be able to get to the end of the race there. Yeah.
and the way you were able to hold off the field, you know, you have your good friend and possible teammate Moreno there behind, AJ Hyder in third. Through all of the yellows, you sustain the pressure from the rearview mirror and you end up getting the victory. How important is a win like this, and how satisfying was it? We saw your reaction as you were crossing the yard of bricks. Through all the chaos tonight, you were able to emerge victorious.
Yeah, it's really cool. Means a lot to win here, win in SAAC. I really want to apologize to Cody Rivera's on what happened early in the race. What I did, that was completely uncalled for, completely unacceptable. And I want to apologize to you guys at KBRN as well for having to show that on the stream. That was extremely dumb of me, and I wanted to apologize to you guys and Cody. That just wasn't right of me. But yeah, I'm really happy I won the race for sure.
You know, I think this is a good celebratory moment because I remember back at Charlotte, you had your cam on for the post-race show we didn't get to. You said you felt a little bit sad about that. I think this kind of redeems us a little bit here, getting to talk to you in victory lane. But through what you've seen over the course of this season and with how difficult it seemed like this car was to drive, especially in the middle of traffic, what did you learn mostly as you guys walked your strategy and you guys kept going restart after restart with the many yellows we saw?
I learned clean air was really, really important. I had much older tires than the guys I was holding off behind me, Moreno, Hyder, Andretti. And it was all about just getting a really good restart, nailing that restart, hitting my lines, and just trying to keep them in my rear view mirror. Fortunately, I was able to do that just because we kept getting so many cautions at the end. But yeah.
So it's your second career victory, first of the season. You guys have a 2-week break coming up for, you know, Independence Day weekend, and then you guys return at Iowa in late July. How momentous is it to get the victory at this point in the season now that the field and yourself will have a bit of time off and you can come back stronger than ever to pick right back off of that momentum when you guys return?
It's a really important win for sure. The start of the season was pretty terrible for me, honestly. I got a 15th place, 14th place to start at Daytona. I believe the second race was Michigan. Then I had 2 really bad weeks at Charlotte and Sonoma, where I think Charlotte just got caught up in a wreck I positioned myself badly in, and Sonoma I just wrecked by myself running. I believe it was 10th place. So to be able to win like this, it's a really big turnaround for, especially for a season that's been kind of dreadful to start. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Iowa. I haven't ran a race there with the new configuration and repave yet, so I'm really looking forward to running that race if I can. And yeah, it's a really big win for sure.
Well, Rivers, a fantastic victory. I'm sure you're going to be celebrating it through the weekend and through the couple-week break that we have until Iowa. Before we let you go on this W here from Indianapolis Motor Speedway, anybody that you want to thank or shout out for tonight's victory?
I want to thank Steve Maggio and Jurg and Randall Payne being in that voice chat with me the entire race. That was really nice to have them in there. I want to thank you guys for putting on this excellent broadcast. They're always excellent. Always go back and watch them. I really enjoy watching them. I want to thank SAAC iRacing. They put on excellent races every week. Cody Rivera's puts a lot of work into these events every week, and I feel terrible for what I did, but yeah, I really want to thank him.
Well,
Thanks,
Rivers.
Zach.
Well, Rivers, on behalf of all of us here at the KBueno Racing Network, a huge congratulations on the win from the Brickyard, and hopefully we'll be able to see the rest of you guys come back for Iowa. It's going to be a bit of a break. We'll miss you all, but hopefully you celebrate into the night, and hopefully you have a happy and safe July 4th weekend.
Thank you so much. Hope you guys do as well.
Rivers Jones celebrating his second career SAAC Cup Series victory and first since late 2024. Let's join the man who comes up runner-up. Had to turn his PC back on, but we are now joined by Ethan Fonseca Moreno. Ethan, a crazy race, but I think that the main constant was your speed over the course of tonight. But let's discuss that final restart for a moment. What did you feel there was missing a little bit to catch up to Rivers Jones and make an effort at the win?
I think it was my reaction timing. I was just trying to guess when he would go, and I mean, he was just consistently like doing the same thing, just going at the same spots every restart, and I was kind of like, I don't know, in my own head with it, thinking that he would maybe like try to do something different for each restart. And I had it once, and then I hesitated and got off the gas and let him get away again. But I don't know. My whole plan was to try to time a restart well enough to try and stick on his outside at least in the turn one to give myself a chance down the backstretch in the turn three. But it just never really happened. So just got to get better. But nonetheless, it was a good race. Just kept myself near the front the whole race and kept myself out of trouble somehow. But yeah, good points though.
Good points. A top 3 finish tonight. And I want to ask more about the level of chaos in this race. Of course, you didn't find yourself involved in many of it. You were at the front, so you didn't really see what was happening in the mid-pack. But, you were a part of being behind the pace car, running a lot of these laps under yellow. How do you find a way to still remain locked in, remain focused, even with the stoppage of rhythm being so, in and out over the course of the event?
I don't know. Honestly, it was pretty hot in here as well, so that also kind of like added on to just me losing focus a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just part of being used to this and all that. But hopefully we don't have many more races like this. It's I don't know. I guess I could speak for most people. It is kind of getting out of hand. Would like some more green flag runs, but yeah, just hopefully things get better moving forward.
Well, it's a hefty 2-week break until you guys return at the virtual Iowa Speedway, so maybe some time to decompress and get ready for the rest of the season ahead. Before we let you go, Ethan, on the runner-up finish from the Brickyard, anybody that you want to thank for tonight's finish?
Just want to thank the boys who were in the VC, the teammates, Nicholas, Trevor, and Keelan was there with us as well. Shout out to him. Juan joined like hella late, but shout out to him, the alcoholic over there. And then shout out to you guys, Francisco, KB, for putting on a broadcast. Sorry we couldn't, do too well tonight, but hopefully it gets better moving forward.
Well, we still saw a great race from you regardless. And Ethan, on behalf of all of us here at the KBueno Racing Network, congratulations on the 2nd place finish. And we'll see you guys at Iowa in a couple of weeks' time. But until then, we hope you have a happy and safe July 4th weekend.
So, you too.
So Ethan Fonseca Moreno from 2nd place on the finishing order tonight from Indianapolis. Let's get a moment to talk with the man who finishes in the top 3. That is AJ Hyder. Back-to-back top 3 finishes, AJ. The speed has been there, but the chaos was just as high over the course of this event. What did you see there in that final attempt at overtime as you were trying to put yourself in conversation for the dub?
I mean, you said it. The speed is there for sure. It's just getting lucky with these cautions. I mean, it seems to be a common trope anytime we run stock cars at this track. It really doesn't matter what league it is. It always devolves into this, but it is what it is. You can't really do much about it. But overall, I think around halfway we got hooked a little bit. Had a pretty good save and fell all the way back to outside the top 30, and somehow, some way, we were able to carve our way through the field and just be there at the end. But yeah, just like before, it's just getting lucky with these restarts and hoping that there's a hole to fill, but there just wasn't. And yeah, we just got to settle for the 3rd and move on.
Yeah, with all the things that we saw tonight at Indianapolis, I'm sure a lot of drivers, including yourself, probably happy to get away with a finish like this based on what was going on. And you had that perspective of having to move your way through the middle of the pack. You had a bit of trouble in turn 2 at one point, but you, Steven Maggio, probably had the best perspective of what it was like to be at the front at first and then be in the mid-pack, having to walk through the trenches. So what did you feel was important to learn at that point in the race, and how you were still able to stay resilient and work your way through the strategy amidst everything that was going on around you?
Yeah, just really the main key point was just to stay patient, stay consistent with your lines, and yeah, eventually they just check up, and if you get a good enough run, you'll be able to clear them in no time. But yeah, just it was getting more difficult the further you went up to the front, and yeah, like before, you just had to get lucky with the restarts.
Well, AJ, a 2-week break. You guys return to action at the Iowa Speedway, and I'm pretty sure from what my knowledge is given to me that we are going to run the newly repaved Iowa Speedway, the brand new look that iRacing gave it. So through the 2-week break, what are you going to try to do to kind of rehone your focus and get back ready for Iowa and the mid-portion of the regular season?
Yeah, I'll definitely try to do at least a couple laps around that new scan. I'm interested to see how it's going to drive compared to the old Iowa. That's pretty much the main thing. But yeah, overall, I just want to shout everyone out at Express Esports, Outlier Speed Co., all the guys at Spartan Motorsports for bringing another fast DuPont Chevy. And I want to thank all the guys on the broadcast for bearing with us this week. And hopefully we'll bring you all a better show when we get to Iowa.
Well, nonetheless, it was still pretty fun to cover. And AJ, glad that you're on a 3rd place finish here tonight at the end of it. Congratulations on the podium this evening. And before we let you go, anybody that you want to really shout out to and thank for tonight's race?
We're not really teammates, but just want to thank Contrafari for giving me a little bit of in-race entertainment, I guess. Yeah. And Nikki B, Nicholas Budimlik for also doing some of that in-race entertainment.
All right, well, AJ, on behalf of all of us at the KBueno Racing Network, it was great to talk to you again, and congratulations once more on the podium finish. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks at Iowa, but until then, we hope you and your family have a safe and happy 4th of July weekend.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
So that's AJ Hyder. Back-to-back-to-back top 3 runs, ends up with 3rd at the end of tonight's race from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So from there, we continue to move forward, but it won't be for a little while. Late July is where you'll find the next race of the SAAC Cup Series in Season 4. We rounded up from Newton, Iowa. The Iowa Speedway, that newly reconfigured and repaved oval, will take center stage on July 24th. That'll be our next race of the year. And you'll have that coverage live on the KBueno Racing Network at around 8:30 p.m. Eastern when we go to the green flag then. So it'll be a ton of fun once we get to that race. And then we'll continue on through the regular season with race 8 at Texas. We'll have the All-Star break on August 7th at Kentucky. And then we re-rack them up and start it all over again for the mid-season madness that begins at our 2nd road course race of the year at the virtual Portland International Raceway. That'll be a big first for us at the KBueno Racing Network, trying to get a race in at Portland, at a racetrack that we have never seen before since its addition into the iRacing service. So that'll be a lot of fun as we go through the midseason madness. All of eyes on that eliminator chase format that ends up deciding the champion at season's end. That'll kick off at Darlington Raceway later on this season. So after a long and grueling race from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the win in hand of Rivers Jones, who ends up with his 2nd career dub after a lot of the chaos, some great strategy, and everything in between. But that'll do it for our coverage of the SAAC Cup Series from Indianapolis. A good thank you to all of the people at the SAAC Cup Series who make it possible for Cody Riveras and the entire squad to put these races on each and every week. And for everybody at the KBueno Racing Network, for Keelan Belsha, Charlie Byer, Eli Comerford, and for my fantastic colleague in the booth tonight, Francisco Bacallao, I am Kenneth Bueno, waving so long from Indy. Congrats to Rivers Jones on his first victory of the 2025 season. We'll be on a 2-week break, but we'll be back at Iowa sooner than later. But until then, have a happy and safe 4th of July weekend as we roll on through the summer.